Good day. Welcome to OPCOM 2021. A year ago, as we gathered in St. Louis at the start of the OPCOM meeting, I remembered how excited I was about all the things I would learn about the goings-on in the national staff. The furthest thing from my mind on that day was for us to meet virtually a year later, but yet here we are. Our greatest resource is our members. With that in mind, this was the safest thing for us to do. We faced many challenges over the past few months. It's taught us to be more flexible and more creative. So with that in mind, I welcome you to our first virtual OPCOM meeting. Alex?
Good day, all. Good morning to the auxiliary, except to the East Coast. Good afternoon, and this is our first accommodation to these circumstances that we're faced with. This is our biannual OPCOM meeting, and I want to welcome everyone, especially Admiral Fagan, and especially those members who are on the YouTube link, because this meeting's historic for a lot of reasons. Number one, it's the first time we've done this virtually. Who would have thought? I know last year at this time we were in St. Louis, and I heard the first news reports about some strange virus in Wuhan. Look where we are 12 months later. It's changed the world. And secondly, this is being live streamed, which I think is tremendous. Not too long ago, when I was the chief of staff, this meeting was limited to the national staff and NEXCOM. They made a big deal that they were going to allow the chiefs of staffs and the DCOs to attend. And I've always wondered why. Knowledge is power. The more that each one of us knows about the auxiliary, about what we do, I think the more powerful we will be. This is the showcase of the national staff. They are going to report their goals, their plans, their accomplishments, and their challenges. They get to share what they do with each other and with NEXCOM, and now for the first time with the entire auxiliary. It's very impressive. You know, we've heard over the last year that the auxiliary was shut down. Naysayers were saying that COVID was going to kill the auxiliary. I never believed that. What I believe and what I think this helps prove is that we're going to come through this stronger than ever. We've developed a skill set, virtual meetings, virtual training. We're going to keep these with us. We're going to move forward, and we're going to do even better things. You're going to be impressed by what you hear. There's going to be 23 reports, approximately, by the senior leaders of the national staff about the different things they're doing, about their programs, and I know I was amazed. And what I was most impressed with is the depth of the experience, their expertise in these various fields, their talent, and their dedication. You know, the national staff, I look at it, it's like the skeleton, the framework for the auxiliary. Without the national staff would be 16 independent districts, different PQSs for crew, for coxswain, for aircraft commander, PEV, all the things that we do. And if they were different, we would have little to no value to active duty. The fact that we have that consistency, the common PQSs across the board, is what gives us value. It's what makes us effective and makes us a valuable force multiplier. Now, I know I only have 4 minutes for this, so I'm not going to go over time. You know, everybody knows that Gus has a mute button for our speakers. What hasn't been very well publicized is he has another button that will fry your computer. Right out of Mission Impossible, you'll see the smoke coming out, so please watch the clock. With that said, I'm going to end my remarks and give it back to Gus. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. Today, we're honored to have as our guest speaker Vice Admiral Linda L. Fagan. I first met Captain Fagan when she arrived in New York as Commander of Sector New York and Captain of the Port of New York. She quickly made it clear that she was a faithful supporter of the auxiliary and our missions, not only in word, but in actions as well. She included the auxiliary every opportunity she possibly could. Before leaving New York, she pinned on her first star and returned to us as D1, Commander of the 1st Coast Guard District, and continued her staunch support of the auxiliary. Vice Admiral Fagan's leadership and commitment have both inspired me and influenced me on my leadership journey, and for that I'm grateful. Admiral?
Thanks for those warm words, Gus and Alex, Larry, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon. I'm coming to you from a just beautiful, cool but sunny day here in Alameda in the Bay Area, and really thrilled to be able to spend a little bit of time with you. And so what I'd like to give you just a little bit of what we've been up to as an operational Coast Guard over the last 10 months. I am going to talk a little bit about the vaccine. It's actually not part of my talking points, but I think it would be interesting to you, kind of where we're at as an organization and what I see moving forward, not just for us as a Coast Guard, but for us as a nation with regard to the vaccine. And then just a little bit of recognition for all of the great work that the auxiliary has continued to do. I share Alex's optimism as well with regard to the auxiliary and where we will be on the other side of this. I'm incredibly optimistic just as I look forward to the others being on the other side of the pandemic. For all of us collectively, I think there are a lot of things that we're going to absolutely be better for what we've gone through over the last 10 plus months at this point. So and again, I mean, I'm going to start with thank you, and I'm going to end with thank you. I can't say it enough how much I appreciate and value what each of you is doing day in and day out to help support the Coast Guard. This is a team effort. You are incredibly valuable members of the team. And just because we've had this COVID disruption and we haven't had the same number of patrols and engagement, please do not interpret that as in any way diminishing the value and need for the auxiliary and the support that you provide to us on the active duty side. So it's we have continued to operate the Coast Guard. I've kind of rewound much like Alex. My last trip, big trip, was in February, and I rewind, and this was literally a trip around the world. I flew from here to Newark, to Delhi, to Jakarta, and then back. And if you go east out of here, it's actually faster because you get all of the tailwinds from the jet stream. But I reflect back on that. The virus was raging in Asia at that point, and we were all just kind of like, well, this is interesting, but what's it gonna, how's it gonna impact us? And within a couple of weeks, we were in our first shutdown here, and so all of that travel has basically come to a halt. But what hasn't stopped is all of the value and operational readiness that we all as a Coast Guard provide to the American public. So we've continued to get cutters underway. We're doing search and rescue missions, aids to navigation, environmental response. All of the mission areas of the Coast Guard have continued forward. So I'm going to highlight a couple. So Polar Star, if you've been Polar Star was my first unit, and 35 years ago, it was not a new ship. 35 years ago, it is definitely not a new ship now. But for the first time in over 20 years, we've had her operating up in the Bering and in the Arctic, in the winter, in the ice. It's been just great to see her up there. It's a really just culmination then of all the work she did last year in Antarctica, doing some of the Antarctic treaty inspection work. So one just sort of fun fact, I can't go into a lot of details, but fun fact, we kind of caught the Russians by surprise with the Polar Star. They were not expecting to see a big red US flagged icebreaker up there in the Bering. It's definitely generated some interesting chatter, and I'll leave it at that. But there's some great pictures and stuff up on the PAC Area Facebook page if you're interested in seeing what the Polar Star has been up to. I can affirm for you, it has been very cold and very dark for pretty much the whole deployment for them. Our medium icebreaker Healy had they had a motor fire. You probably saw that a couple months ago. That got some pretty extensive news coverage. She had the motor replaced in the dry dock here in Vallejo and is currently actually on the waterfront in San Francisco, kind of completing that work, and then she'll return to home port hopefully the end of next week. we have deployed over the last year plus several of the national security cutters into the Westpac and Oceania. And obviously some of that has had to be scaled back a little bit. But what I can tell you with regard to that part of the world, the demand signal, it was loud when I got into my job 2.5 years ago, but it is deafening at this point. And I don't expect that to diminish with regard to the kinds of skills and engagement that the Coast Guard would bring to that region. So, normally I would have made a couple trips over there. I would have visited Weishi while she was in the dry dock in Yokosuka as a result of that fire that she had in the Pacific. But obviously none of that happened. So I've been doing Zoom calls with my my international partners. It's been interesting. We started with Japan Coast Guard. And it was just on the phone and, with interpreters. It was a little clunky, but it worked. And, the Koreans, Indians, and, when I was done with that, it's like, why haven't we been doing that all along? Why were we letting it go a year or 2 years and then you only would engage on an in-person meeting? Why aren't we talking to our key peer Coast Guards, quarterly or a couple times a year using technology, right? And so that's an example, I think, of one of the real positives that's going to come out of the experience that we've all had during the pandemic. The Eastern Pacific and the counter drug mission, alive and well. It is a 365, 24/7 mission that the Coast Guard is engaged in, along with the Navy and other agencies. So the interesting thing there, right? The bad guys were afraid of the pandemic as well, and so there was definitely a drop off of movement early on, while their cartels kind of figured out what their new business model was going to be in a pandemic environment. The not good news is they have figured that out, and it's back, game on with just a number of flows, number of interdictions. In 20, we interdicted 176 metric tons of cocaine. Street value is about $5.5 billion. And so if you don't think that the counter drug mission is a life-saving mission, it absolutely is. Every bit of that is drugs that don't reach the streets of the U.S. and result in overdoses. The Southwest border remains super dynamic, and particularly on the maritime side of that, we if any of you live down in Southern California, you know that it's a steady stream. Numbers aren't big, but it's steady, and it's almost daily of migrants that come across on the maritime side of the Southwest border and land directly in San Diego. Early last week we had 21 migrants. They got caught out in a little bit of bad weather on a panga, open boat with an outboard, and we ended up having to. We got a helo on scene. We airlifted 10 of them. Got a cutter on scene. Got the other 11. But just highlights the one, just desperation of folks looking to gain entry into the U.S. And we obviously are out there helping to ensure that people are safe and don't lose their lives. So, all of that has happened in the backdrop of COVID. We've gone to some pretty restrict what we call ROM, or restriction of movement, for cutter crews pre-deployment and for our deployable forces. It has been somewhat effective, not as effective as I would have liked it to be. And we're moving to get a little tighter on that ROM, particularly for pre-deployments for our cutters. We've had both Stratton and Berthoff sailed, and within, having observed the 14-day ROM period, and then experienced significant outbreaks amongst the crew within days of sailing. So we had to pull them back into port, put people into hotel rooms for 14 days, and then we were able to get them back out again. So, there has been impact to operational readiness for the Coast Guard with regard to COVID. And we have had Coast Guard members infected with COVID. Thankfully, no one has passed away from it, and it's like single digits. I think it's only been 2, maybe 3 Coast Guard members who had symptoms severe enough to be hospitalized. So it's all good news. And I'm in and out of my office and office spaces a couple of times a week with others. So we have figured out how to do this in a way that's not everybody at home 100%, but we're certainly not in the office fully aggregated the way we were back in March when this started. So the vaccine, I got to tell you, I am super excited and optimistic and just pumped about the vaccine. We have been getting distributions of both the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine as a Coast Guard, kind of commiserate with our numbers. And we've administered several thousand first doses, and we're moving into second doses. I have received the first dose of Pfizer and am scheduled on Thursday to get my second dose. And I could not be more excited for the opportunity to receive the vaccine. It's interesting though. So there's a huge leadership challenge for us here because of the way the vaccine was developed in field. And first off, if you haven't done some definitive reading on it, I encourage you to do it. I come away from it with, this is the safest vaccine we have ever created as a human race. In fact, I'm rewatching John Adams on HBO, and there is an incredibly cringeworthy scene in it where the smallpox is raging, and they literally are infecting each other with live smallpox virus to try and gain immunity. Right? That was the state of the art then, as we were a new nation. And so you fast forward to what we've just accomplished in a really short time period, and like I say, I don't believe there is anything to be concerned about, but people need to educate themselves about what the vaccine is and what kind of immunity it offers. But it's optional, even for the military force. It is not mandatory like the seasonal flu shot. So we literally are winning hearts and minds with our workforce, individual by individual, unit by unit. And there's a generational component to this that's been it's been interesting. It's a young workforce, and some of them are like, nope, absolutely not. Others are, I don't know. They're just kind of like, they don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. Some take the view, I don't want to take a vaccine from somebody else that may benefit it more than I do. So we're seeing pass rates at units in the high end, 50% of the unit passes, at the low end, 25%. So the challenge there is we really need to get units to about an 80% accept rate so that we can start easing some of the PPE wear and just all the restrictions that we've got in place. So that is the journey ahead for us as an organization. I like to talk about this is a we, not me issue. I got vaccinated to protect my team. It's all, for me, it's all about them and my family and the people that I'm interacting with, much more so than the protection that it offers me. But so we're working through that as an active duty force. I think as a nation, we've got some of that same struggle. I have kind of concluded. So we're actually, I should also caveat this, we're on a pause certainly across PAC area with our clinics, because we just don't have vaccine. All the vaccine that we've received has either been first dose administered or designated as second doses. So both as a Coast Guard and as a nation, that vaccine can't start flowing fast enough and in big enough numbers to be distributed. And again, I'm optimistic with what some of the executive orders that we've seen this week, that we will turn that corner. And as we go into the spring and summer, you're going to see those numbers increase significantly. And frankly, like I say, we can't get there fast enough. So a couple of things that we've been talking about as an organization, a lot of attention on diversity and inclusion and culture of respect. I'm not going to go into it a lot here. I'll make sure that like Alex and Gus have some of the communications that I've put out to commanding officers and links to the toolkits that we've developed to help our workforce talk about culture respect, what it means, and how we create inclusive environments and, value and acknowledge just all the great work that all of the diversity that all of our workforce brings. Hey, and then, boy, it's like Gus is probably going to mute me here in a minute. So I just got one more thing and I'll see if you have any questions. Because I've looked at your agenda, like this is the tightest minute by minute agenda I think I've ever seen. I don't want to be the one that blows it up right at the beginning. Hey, so then a little bit of recognition for all you folks out there. To Lisa Hickman, who's a newly certified auxiliary chef, canceled her own Thanksgiving plans for a last minute cook fill on the Kukui over the holidays, and she flew to Sitka and spent 10 days with them, cooking and providing for that crew. Right, that's the kind of support that has continued despite the pandemic. And in D14, the Aux Air have been active all year, continuing to conduct first flight searches for us. 22 flights that were related to COVID relief efforts in the islands. In D13, the flotilla commander of Depot Bay, Auxiliaries Jenny Shea, oversaw effort to evacuate and maintain comms with the flotilla members there during the just really awful wildfires that we experienced last summer. And they continue to lead the nation in vessel safety checks, right? So the work has absolutely gone on. In D11, the longstanding service of Dick Reinhardt was remembered, and we should, he unfortunately passed away over the summer, but his legacy and dedicated service to the auxiliary is, to me, it just epitomizes the selfless service and volunteerism and spirit of each of you. And then lastly, we've also opened an auxiliary research and development unit that was established this past August. Tommy Allen, who's the D1 commander, was there for that. I marvel every day at what it is each of you does for us, and I often remark we are only limited by our imagination. As you think about the aux chefs and the clergy program and cook, it is just amazing to me the talent and dedication that each of you bring and offer to the active duty side. It's just really it's a privilege and an honor to serve with you, and I can't thank you enough. And then one last thing. So my uniform choice is intentional this morning. So I'm wearing, this is the new ODU that we've talked so much about. And I think, Alex was in the room when we talked about this as a senior leadership team. It was just a couple months ago, and we've got a great way ahead on the uniform. I can assure you it's super comfortable. I like it. This one's the lightweight fabric, way more comfortable than the old style ODUs. I think you guys you're gonna really like them when we start to field them. We're still probably 12 to 18 months from starting to get them into the supply system. Let me stop there. I'm happy to take a couple of questions. Again, I don't want to, Gus has got us on a really tight time frame, so I don't want my computer to go black and smoke out on me. But see if maybe we got a question or two, and then the other thing is I'm going to see Alex next month in DC, and so if there's anything you want to pass to him, and I can help answer or help drive conversation with the rest of the leadership team, I'm happy to do that. Let me stop there. Is Captain Johnson actually raising his hand as opposed to the virtual raising his hand?
Actually, I'm looking here, seeing who's raising their hand, but I am not, Admiral. I just thank you for coming on today. I know you're very busy, and I know it's nonstop over there on the Pacific Coast. So greatly appreciated. And I would encourage folks, ask a question, fire away. You don't get this opportunity that often. So ask a question. If you're on the sidelines and you're thinking, should I ask a question or not? Please do.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. I think it's Peter Jensen. This is an actual hand raise as opposed to, so this skills, things I've learned during the pandemic. Only recently have I figured out the hand raise function on
There we go.
Zoom. But anyway, Peter, do you have something?
Yes, ma'am. You mentioned the activities of the bad actors, and I gather that the Russians in particular, and perhaps also to a certain extent the Chinese, are stepping up their activities in the Arctic. Can you give us a little expert commentary there?
Yeah, they so 45-year-old red icebreaker in the thick of great power competition. So, you know, Russia's view on the Arctic is as much sort of existential for them as a nation and their ability to provide for their own people as it is about their sovereignty and power projection. For China, it's strictly power projection. And they declared themselves as a near Arctic nation. There's no, you know, they've made that statement. That's not actually a term of art anywhere that's recognized internationally. So, you know, both China and Russia, a lot of interest in the Arctic, which is why, you know, we can't field those polar security cutters quick enough. We're on contract halters, you know, cutting steel on the first one, and frankly, we can't get that in the fleet fast enough. You know, the other interesting thing about you know, high latitude operations, and I'm using high latitude intentionally, not just the Arctic, the sovereignty and the power projection issue in Antarctica is comparable. Now, we don't, you know, we very much are an Arctic nation, and we have a large investment in our own sovereignty, you know, in the Arctic, you know, off the north slope of Alaska. But in Antarctica, we have an equal sovereignty issue, right? We are the only nation at the South Pole. And by being at the South Pole, in fact, there's a significant strategic fuel reserve at the South Pole. We actually control access into the deep Arctic with that position and fuel reserve. McMurdo, the mission was, you know, Polar Star did not go down there because the National Science Foundation kind of took a pause, which means it'll be a substantial investment in time and effort next year, because they're doing a major recapitalization of McMurdo and the U.S. base there, and, you know, rebuild, making it a little more environmentally compliant. McMurdo currently is the only deep water port in Antarctica. You know, there's 25 or 26 nations with footprints there and outposts, but, you know, deep water access where you can get a cargo ship and a tank ship, that's McMurdo. The Chinese are building a deep water port not too far from where McMurdo is. So, you know, I offer that perspective as, like, we talk a lot about the Arctic, and you know, that power projection for us is key. But Antarctica is also, you know, an area that we need to continue to watch from a great power projection and kind of contested environment in space, because it's yeah, it's just going to be interesting. And, you know, I forget which year the Antarctic Treaty comes up for renegotiation. It'll be interesting. And then with regard to the Chinese, right? You know, I did not mention IUU, illegal, unreported, unregulated fishing. The Coast Guard has just put out a strategy in that realm. This is, if you've not read anything about IUU fishing, I encourage you to do it. It's a worldwide scourge. The Chinese and Taiwanese are some of the worst offenders. We had one of our national security cutters over off the Galapagos because of the Chinese fishing fleet activity over there in this IUU realm just within the last couple of months. And you just see China kind of operating with impunity. And so when you think about, again, countering China, and it's not that, you know, it's China Navy, China Coast Guard, their naval militia and their fishing fleet, and there are not clear lines between that continuum of Chinese flag vessels. It's just going to continue to get you know, sort of more and more sporty, and this is where the U.S. Coast Guard and the way we operate, you know, we offer a value proposition and a rules-based approach to those small island nations in the region that China does not, frankly, with their you know, checkbook diplomacy and a big stick that they whack people with. Thanks, great question.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, anybody else? And then I'll turn it back over to Gus. Let you guys. I think I'm stealing some of Vin's time. I think Vin's up next. I see him there. It's good to see you, Vin. And all right, I don't see any hands. Are there any hands up, Gus?
None, Admiral.
All right. Hey, thank you. Thank you all for your leadership, your service, your dedication. Like I said, I can't imagine where we would be without each and every one of you. And I've challenged all of my district commanders to get us, as soon as possible. We need to have a sense of urgency to, get back to a more normalized posture with all of you and all the folks on the front lines and all of our ports. And again, please don't feel like you've been forgotten or somehow things have changed. We're we need you, and I can't wait till we can see each other in person again soon. All right. Hey, thanks everybody. Enjoy the rest of the day. I'm gonna log out. All right. Thank you.
Thanks so much,
Thank you,
Admiral. See you in
Admiral.
February.
Thanks.
Thank you. Commodore Pica.
Yes, sir. Well,
Yep.
tough performer to follow, but I'll do my best. And I do want to express a good afternoon and good morning to all, with a special salute to Vice Admiral Fagan, of course, National Commodore Maluski, you, Gus, Vice National Commodore Formato, Captain Johnson, and the rest of the NEXCOM. I want to thank you for all you do to help OXA, help our fellow shipmates, help our fellow shipmates, the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary. And given that I'm going to give our 15-minute what is OXA and what is in it for me presentation in 5 minutes, if we can page forward to slide 3, which I think I sent earlier, I will speak over that. Otherwise, I'll just keep speaking. So here we go. Elected by the board of directors of OXA to the chief executive position of the old association under then National Commodore Washburn, I am now serving my third NACO in this role. The NACO is also simultaneously the chairman of the board of OXA. The first thing we did was we rebranded the old association as OXA, a message that we intended it to be what IBM is to the International Business Machine Company, a modern U.S. corporation operating at public company standards. We also sent a strong message to the OXA staff by noting that OXA's motto was honor, respect, and devotion to members. No presentation, short or long, is complete without noting that OXA is now at 36 souls, all but 3 of whom are volunteers. Its senior management meets every Monday evening to drive programs that add revenues, reduce expenses, and control business risks. While I can't mention all 36 souls, I want to note that its senior-most members are Jim Losey, Chief Operating Officer, who revamped and re-envisioned the warehouse as the OXA Fulfillment Center. Over 5,000 orders and over $300,000 in revenue went through the Fulfillment Center in 2020. Lou DeGisto, Chief Marketing Officer, who has envisioned, created, and negotiated 34 blue and white dealograms that you have received in your emails since inception. Lou and his team are also responsible for the quarterly benefits of membership compendium that OXA issues. David Barber, Chief Financial Officer, who has conceived and implemented a public company standard budgeting system, which will give the DNACOs, ANACOs, and their teams transparency on what their monies are spent on and by whom. A major thank you to Commodore King, who inspired it, and Commodore Maluski, who pushed it. An additional thank you to Commodore Bruce for embracing it and working hard to implement it with us. Marsha Grogan, Chief Development Officer, has built a first-class development team that seeks donations in kind or in money to support the RBS vision. We've also created an in-house grant writing team to turbocharge pursuit of what are essentially targeted donations. Nothing can be done without mission-ready systems, and that responsibility lies with newly minted Commodore Jeff Geddes, Chief Information Officer. Look for even more user-friendly e-commerce web abilities in 2021. Dan Paisley, General Counsel, has been indispensable in keeping us inside the 501c3 lines while we pursue our goals as the hard-nosed business professionals that we are. I also want to thank Stan Feldman, our Treasurer and Chief Materials Liaison Officer, and Vicki Campolone, our Executive Assistant, for providing the glue needed on a day-to-day basis. That concludes my prepared remarks. I want to ask you to continue to spread the word to Shop CG Aux and to promise you that the best is yet to come. Thank you. Gus,
Thank you, Commodore Pica.
if there's any questions, happy to take them.
I see no hands raised. Thank you, Commodore.
My pleasure, sir.
Okay, at this point, I would like to welcome some very notable people with us today. Immediate past National Commodore Larry King. Welcome, Commodore King. Captain Scott Johnson, Chief Director of Auxiliary, and Commander Troy Glendy. Thank you for joining us today. I'd also like to introduce, and since we're not doing this in person, if you could just say something so the camera focuses on you, and perhaps have a remark. I'd like to introduce our Deputy National Commodores, starting with Deputy National Commodore supporting Information Technology and Planning, Commodore Linda Merriman.
Good day, everybody. It's interesting times. Happy that we're able to do this instead of just skipping over it, and I look forward to hearing everybody's remarks today.
Thank you, Commodore. Next, we have Deputy National Commodore supporting operations in the 5 PAC area districts, Commodore Mary Kirkwood.
Hi, everybody. I duplicate what Linda said. It's great that we could offer this to our entire membership to watch today. I think it's a lot of great information, and hope everybody gets something out of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commodore Kirkwood. Moving west to east brings us to Deputy National Commodore supporting mission support and the 6 Atlantic Area West districts, Commodore Tom Mullally.
Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning in the case of a few. Again, I want to shout out to the guys and girls in the YouTube gallery. Thank you for joining us on that online. This is the first for being able to reach out to the entire organization. So thank you for your dedication there, and looking forward to our ups and downs.
Thank you, Commodore. And working our way to the East Coast, we have Deputy National Commodore supporting recreational boating safety in the 5 Atlantic area districts, Commodore Gary Barth.
Welcome, everyone, and I think this is a great opportunity to remove some of the mystique about what goes on at the national level, and I think it's a great opportunity for everybody to tune in and find out what really happens and removes all the doubt about what people do. Thanks again for showing up and attending.
Thank you, Commodore Barth. I have a couple of items in the way of housekeeping that, and ground rules that I'd like to discuss with you. Should you have any questions as we go along with each of the presentations, please jot them down and we'll hold them to the end. We have a 15-minute block set aside to address whatever questions or concerns you may have. And the next thing is for the presenters, please be mindful of your time. I'm sure you realize that Alex was kidding when I was going to send an electronic bullet to your computer. While I don't have the wherewithal to do that, I would like you to be respectful of those that follow you. Having said that, I would like to turn this over to Terry Barth, Patrick Brown, and Chris Harshfield for any comments they have regarding the logistics and the housekeeping of our virtual OPCOM meeting.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Though I wish we could all be together, sadly, this is the next best thing to being there. And the good news is, we're able to see each other's faces. But the bad news is, now that we are able to see each other's faces, I'm going to ask everyone who is not speaking to please turn your video camera off and make sure you mute yourself. This is going to help with the bandwidth and as we go through. Also, particularly for those who may be speaking, make sure that your phones are muted or on vibrate. We don't want to hear any background noises. And that's really all I have. Just welcome. Good to see you.
Patrick, Chris, do you have anything you care to add?
No, I believe Terry covered everything.
Very good, sir. Okay, moving along, I want to turn this over to Commodore Peter Jensen, who will offer us a high-level view of the strategic plan. Commodore Jensen.
Thank you, sir. Okay, for those of you who don't know me, I am Peter Jensen, an Assistant National Commodore for Performance and Student Programs. And Commodore Formato has asked me to oversee strategic plan implementation. Now, there's a lot of people on the call who might not be familiar with this critical document. So first, I'll provide a condensed overview. Think of the strategic plan as a blueprint for where we want the auxiliary to go and National Staff's role in bringing that about. As a guiding document, this is National's counterpart to the operational plans that each of the 16 auxiliary districts have prepared. So, we started work on this about a year ago at M-Train 2020, and after a lot of midnight oil and elbow grease, the new strategic plan was released at the start of Commodore Molesky's term this past November. And it falls to the Assistant National Commodores, ANACOs for short, to oversee strategic plan implementation in their respective functional groups. And in each group, it's the directors and their staffs who do a lot of the heavy lifting. Now, in the same way that a house is built on a physical foundation, the strategic plan is built on a set of foundational principles. Let's start with the auxiliary's mission: promote recreational boating safety, augment the Coast Guard with trained personnel and mission-ready facilities, and support a wide array of Coast Guard requirements. Next comes our vision statement, and I must say this is so compellingly written, it's worth repeating in full. To wit, the United States Coast Guard Auxiliary, the best trained, most valued maritime volunteer organization in the world, highly effective during normal operations and ready for emergencies. Words to live by. Some more foundational principles: our core values: honor, integrity is our standard; respect, we value our diversity, yet we work together as one; devotion to duty, we volunteer with commitment, accountability, and pride. Then we have our watchwords: ready, we train to active duty standards; resourceful, we find and use different ways to serve the Coast Guard; and resilient, we persevere through obstacles and move forward. These obstacles include 9/11 and the current pandemic. Our three guiding principles: ready, relevant, and responsive. And from these guiding principles, we formulated our priorities for this edition of the strategic plan. And this is where I need a slide put up. That's the one. Okay, so I'm going to summarize these priorities by group, starting in the upper left-hand corner. And it's from these priorities come the strategic plan goals and their associated milestones. And as for those, the ANACOs will soon discuss these in their respective areas. So we're working from the top left: information technology, provide a unified web platform; NextCom, enhance the relevance of the auxiliary; our VNACO is overseeing the creation of a safety culture, auxiliary-wide; performance and student programs, build up the auxiliary university program and the Aux Scout program. The RBS group, as their name would suggest, strengthen all aspects of recreational boating safety. Response and prevention, wow, they have three priorities: expand the interpreter corps, strengthen auxiliary relevance to local Coast Guard units, and foster an auxiliary-wide focus on prevention. Our friends at FORTHCOM have two strong priorities: help flotillas recruit and retain, and help the Coast Guard and the auxiliary meet human capital needs. And last but not least, our Chief Financial Officer will be standardizing our financial policies and procedures. All right, if I could have our second slide. There we go. Okay, here's our box score, and I must say, this is impressive. We're not even 3 months into the NACO term, and collectively, we've completed over 13% of our strategic plan milestones. Now, strategic plan monitoring is a big job, so I found some very talented people to assist me. Kevin Redden, he's the Director of Performance Measurement, and Jacob Thayer, the Deputy Director of Student Programs, have developed a really nice strategic plan tracker. And this tracker is available 24/7 to directors, ANACOs, and NextCom members. A lot of you know Commodore Randy Ventris. He's now our day-to-day liaison to the ANACOs. Now, the strategic plan is a living document. So by necessity, there will be some changes over time as new challenges intrude, and there will be new opportunities as they arise. And expect the next printed revision to be published around May 2021. ANACOs, if there's a need to change a milestone's due date, notify Randy Ventris and provide him with a new date and a brief justification. Now, if there's a need to add or delete or alter a milestone, let Randy know and let me know as well. We'll talk things over with you, and we'll run your proposal up the chain of leadership and management. This is a pretty straightforward procedure. We'll work with you to get your proposed changes adjudicated in short order. And that's it for the strategic plan overview. I will yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Peter. That was outstanding.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so moving along, that brings us to the Director of Computer Software and Systems, Amanda Constant.
Good morning and afternoon, everyone. As Gus introduced me, I'm Amanda Constant, the Director of Computer Software and Systems Directorate. First off, I would like to introduce you to my deputy, Kevin Luke, who is joining us on the YouTube channel and I'm sure is waving madly at his screen, although none of you can see it. I'd like to move in to the topic at hand and share with you some of our highlights and challenges since we last virtually met. This is also known as our 3 ups and 3 downs. My first highlight involves the new server infrastructure. The transition from the auxiliary servers being hosted in Rackspace to the new hosting location in Amazon Web Services has been completed, and the old Rackspace account was terminated as of December 31st, 2020. The WOW websites, the Aux directory, and other critical functions are up and running in the new cloud, and other functions such as Skills Bank and Interpreter Core searches have transitioned to Aux Data 2. My second highlight involves server software updates. With the transition to Amazon Web Services as our cloud hosting platform, we're now running on up-to-date software versions. The C Directorate, IT Operations and Infrastructure Division is now performing critical software updates on a weekly basis during regularly scheduled maintenance windows on Sunday nights. These updates, allow the Directorate to apply security patches, maintaining strong cybersecurity protection on the auxiliary servers. The third highlight involves our Cybersecurity Directorate. The C Directorate Cybersecurity Division has expanded its charter to include an augmentation branch. Along with their mission of delivering cybersecurity services to protect auxiliary IT assets and services, responding to cybersecurity incidents, and delivering cybersecurity awareness education, they are now working with the Coast Guard to plan, staff, and execute cybersecurity augmentation support to the Coast Guard and Marine Transportation System. Now, as with any organization, we also have our share of challenges. The first involves the Auxiliary Application Management System and join.cgox.org. And this is a system critical to the H Directorate and our hiring or recruiting new members to the auxiliary. During application updates required by the transition to Amazon Web Services and subsequent software program updates, a vulnerability was discovered in the join.cgox.org webpage and the Auxiliary Application Management System, causing both systems to be taken offline until appropriate mitigations could be completed and vetted by the Coast Guard cybersecurity team. Penetration testing is underway on the modified code, and an initial report is under internal review. We will be continuing penetration testing on a regular basis moving forward as well. The C Directorate is working closely with the Coast Guard to restore the full service as soon as possible. The second challenge involves the synchronization of data between Aux Data 2 and the auxiliary databases. Most notably is we are still under a process of manual updates. The data transfers from Aux Data 2 to the auxiliary hosted databases is a manual process leading to longer than desired gaps between the data available in the official system of record, Aux Data 2, and the Aux Directory program, where most auxiliarists or Aux staff members still often go for access to the information available in those tables. Staffing has not yet been identified to implement allowed automations, and the C Directorate division chiefs are proactively recruiting to fill vacant positions as quickly as process and policy will allow. Our final challenge involves gaps in the data uploads into Aux Data 2. In early November 2020, the regular server maintenance, which I noted in up number 2, caused the National Testing Center legacy code to malfunction, resulting in a failure of the automation, which sends the task completion updates into Aux Data 2. While code corrections have been underway during November and December and into January, uploads have been generated and applied manually, once again resulting in gaps recording members' critical task completions. Most notably at the time of this writing, which was in December, those tasks associated with the core training were critical to get in place. Updates from the Auxiliary Learning Management System, AUX-LMS, utilize the same upload mechanism in Docs Data 2, but are also completed manually at this time. A new combined solution taking task completion data from the National Testing Center, the NTC, the Auxiliary Learning Management System, AUX-LMS, and the Auxiliary Online Classroom, Moodle, with an automated system to send to AUX Data 2 is under consideration. I yield the rest of my time.
Amanda, thank you very much. And I'm going to tell you, you set the bar pretty high for the use of your time, 4 minutes, 58 seconds.
Right there.
Okay, so that will bring us to the Director of IT User Support and Services, Randy Patton. Please share with us your proud moments and challenges, Randy.
Good afternoon, Admiral Fagan, or good morning to Admiral Fagan, Chief Director and staff, Commodores and colleagues. I am really pleased to be with you, at least virtually today, to present the IT User Support and Service Directorate's 3 ups and downs. But first I'd like to recognize my Deputy Director, Bob Fritz, who, while we can't see him, he can see us. First, please allow me to provide an explanation of acronyms for those who are unfamiliar and are watching. CS refers to Communication Service Officers who maintain unit websites and have other assorted duties. IS refers to Information Services Officers who are responsible for entering and/or approving members' activities and hours into our database system of record, AUX Data 2. And of course, BSX refers to the Chief Director's Office. Now on to our first up. Reorganization to support AUX Data 2. We had to really reimagine the directorate to focus intensely on supporting AUX Data 2 while still maintaining all of the core functions of the other 3 divisions of the U Directorate, those being CS Officer Support, IS Officer Support, and Membership Support. Our second up, IS Officer Training Options. We have received approval of concept from BSX for the online IS training course as a supplement to the AUX 10 residency school. Once deployed later this year, this course will provide much greater flexibility in scheduling more training for IS officers. And our third up, CS Officer Support Division. The CS Officer Support Division has attained its goal of building a team of website reviewers, which is now stable in numbers, and in which the members are working synergistically with each other. Only 1 vacancy remains to be filled. They have developed a web reviewers toolkit, which has become their de facto standard for assisting CS officers in the field and for training new team members. And now on to our downs. The first, backup for key staff positions. There continues to be a need to acquire qualified personnel to back up critical areas, which in some cases are staffed by a single member. I've been working with my deputy and the 4 division chiefs to assist in this recruiting effort, and successful outcomes have been achieved, particularly in the CS Officer Support and the AUX Data 2 support divisions. Our second down has to do with IS and CS officer training. As is the case with the auxiliary as a whole, the coronavirus pandemic has prevented resident training in the field, both with C schools and in-person member training. This has led to the widespread use of computer conference platforms, such as the one we're using today, in an attempt to fill the need for training, especially with regard to AUX Data 2. And last but not least, our third down involves our legacy help desk. As reported previously, our legacy national help desk system is desperately showing its age in terms of functionality and vulnerability to cybersecurity issues, such as a denial of service attack. I've been working with both the AUX Data 2 support division and the membership support division to determine whether or not it may be feasible to subsume the legacy help desk into the AUX Data 2 Tier 1 support system with an expected completion date of June 2021. However, there are limitations in the Tier 1 system, including but not limited to the lack of a searchable knowledge base module, which may make it more practical to upgrade or replace the existing Kyoko Resolve platform. And that concludes our 3 ups and downs for the U Directorate. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Randy. That was outstanding. Next, I would like to introduce to you Assistant National Commodore for Information and Technology, Commodore Susan Davies, who, unlike the directors who share their proud moments and challenges or ups and downs, the Assistant National Commodores will speak relative to the progress of NACO's strategic plan. Commodore Davies?
Thank you, Commodore Formato. Good afternoon, everybody from Northern Virginia. First of all, I'd like to thank Randy Patton, Bob Fritz, Amanda Constant, and Kevin Luke for their dedication and leadership to their directorates. Really appreciate and want to recognize their service and volunteerism. What I'm going to do is give you an overview of our 10 milestones in IT through this calendar year. And if, Patrick, if you could bring up my slide, I'd appreciate it. We have the 10 milestones here laid out in a calendar view from November 20, when the strategic plan came into effect, through the end of this calendar year. In the lower left, you have a legend. And we have 1 complete, 4 in progress, 2 on hold, 2 scheduled, and 1 ongoing milestone, and I'll briefly cover those. First of all, Amanda already discussed the server infrastructure project, switching over from Rackspace to Amazon Web Services. That was a continuation from the previous strategic plan, and it has been going on for a couple of years. So kudos to the C Directorate for completing that project. The next milestone is to assist the Chief Director's Office, Captain Johnson, with developing, updating the written policy for administration of the OX data system. The current policy was written for the legacy OX data, which had read, write, and read only. That is no longer in effect with OX data 2. So I've kickstarted this. Captain Johnson, I sent a draft on Friday to Stephen Attolo and then Chris Booth to get that going. Along with introducing the new OX data system, we are revising the information services C-School content, not so much the curriculum, but we're updating it for the new OX data 2 system. And that should be complete before the next NACON, hopefully in person in August. We are also going to conduct a cybersecurity risk assessment, and that just recently began. Really what kickstarted that for us was the AAMS issue that Amanda mentioned earlier. That's going to be complete by August. Next is workflows and forms. Salesforce platform on which OX data 2 is based is a great platform for introducing workflows and forms to move us beyond the PDF paper-based kind of form structure. So as we're starting to get settled into the new OX data 2 system for our activity log reporting and patrol order activity, now we can sort of open up the aperture a little bit and look at what other ways that Salesforce-based platform can help us get more efficient. In conjunction with the IS officer course, we also started last year updating the CS officer course, the Communication Services officer course, and that subject matter expert was really needed to be moved over to that Information Services officer course to help them bring that up to speed. And so what we did was we put that CS officer course update on hold. That's the orange that you're seeing, while that subject matter expert helps the IS folks out. We're hoping to resume that in a couple of months and be complete sometime in the fall. Next is whenever we have a system enhancement request from a national director, we don't really have a formal process internally to assess the priority. And so whether it's from the T directorate or H or Q, what have you, their needs are important. We need a way to help them and help us prioritize the applying of resources from the C directorate to help get through those requested enhancements. So an example, might be the Moodle upgrade, for example, is a great example of getting that one up to speed as soon as we can. Next, and Randy touched on this, is the our auxiliary help desk is getting pretty old. That's separate from the Aux Data 2 service request. And so we want to take a look at that Get Data 2 service request capability to see if it's reasonable to consider replacing that, using that to replace the Kayako help desk, which is incredibly old. What we have to keep in mind is that whenever we have a help desk platform, we need a public facing component. A lot of what we do, I always have in the back of my mind, can the public still access what they need to access? So that's going to be taken under consideration here in a couple of months. When I talk about homegrown options, a great example is the National Testing Center. That was built by auxiliarists over 10 years ago. And it's got somewhat ancient coding, potentially some cybersecurity vulnerabilities that will be coming out in the assessment that's going to be taking place. And it's also kind of an old user experience, if you will. So we want to take a look at those homegrown databases and services and see if we can look at options to replacing them. And then last but not least, prioritizing the Aux Data 2 backlog. Every 3 weeks, Amanda Constant meets with the Coast Guard, the program manager, and with Acumen, the vendor, and we go through what's in the backlog, what's ready to be brought forward to update in Aux Data 2 as far as a capability or a functional improvement. And that is going to go on continuously for the life cycle of Aux Data 2. So that's why that one is ongoing. So I don't think I've used up my 10 minutes of time, and I'm happy to take questions via chat or later on in that 15-minute time period. Commodore Formato, back to you.
Thank you, Commodore Davies. That was outstanding.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, which will bring us to the Director of Performance Measurement, Kevin Redden.
Good afternoon, Commodore. I'm Kevin Redden, Director of Performance Measurement. We've been asked to, are we live?
Yes, Kevin.
Okay. This is a virtual meeting, so I'm going to introduce my deputy virtually. Kim Fillion is Deputy Director of M. Kim is a former district captain in First Southern, and she's been doing a wonderful job of managing the team. Okay, getting into our ups and downs. First up is election eligibility report. When Aux Data 2 came online, it did not have a election eligibility report that could be used in the field. Our team got together, and it was actually a very complex job, because if you look in the auxiliary manual at all the different things that go into eligibility, this report takes into account all of them. It went online in early September. By the end of the election cycle, it had been accessed almost 1,200 times. Commodore Jensen had talked about the strategic plan tracker. We now have a new tracker online that Peter had talked about. It's color-coded, easy to read, and in one glance, you can see a whole ANACO group's milestones. Third up is we continue to recover from the switch over to Aux Data 2, which had changed all of the way we get data out of Aux Data. And we're now coming up to speed with Aux Data 2. We've got introduction to risk management status reports online. The risk management TCT refresher, the annual refresher, is online. And the old Aux Data had a unit summary data report that was very useful. Of course, that disappeared with Aux Data 2. We now have that online, and that will be put out on a monthly basis and archived, so you can go back in time to see where things stand. Okay, looking at the downs. When the strategic plan monitoring position came over to, the whole division came over to the M directorate, the DVC in charge stayed behind because that was Jacob Thayer. He moved up to deputy director. So it created a challenge for M. We needed to fill that position, And we've been very fortunate that Commodore Randy Ventris has stepped into that job and is doing a great job on it. Second down is that we also acquired the new member survey, which gets done quarterly, and the exit member surveys that came over from S to M directorate with the new administration. We were due to have those two surveys done by the end of December. The person who was doing it was a COVID first responder who was very heavily tied up in that response. So those two surveys slipped. They are in the final stage of completion right now, and I anticipate the report will be out next week. It'll be published. The last down was AUX Data 2. When that came in, it broke all of our old report systems. So it's been a major piece of work to upgrade, but we are moving forward quite well and coming up with new reports all the time. And that completes the cover.
Thank you, Kevin. That was excellent. That moves us now down to the Director of Student Programs, Jean Marie McNamara.
Good afternoon, sir. As many of you know, this S Directorate has been around a long time. However, it changed its purpose as of 1 November 2020. We used to be strategic planning, and we consisted of 4 divisions. At this point in time, we are now the new and improved, hopefully, Student Programs Directorate, and we have currently 2 divisions under us, the Auxiliary University Program and the Auxiliary Sea Scout Program. My deputy director, has been mentioned several times, Jacob Thayer, who is actually an AU, brings a wealth of knowledge to help improve that program, and has done so tremendously. The AUX Scout program came over to us from the H Directorate, and they were well underway of succeeding with their new mission. And their division chief is Bruce Johnson, and he's been doing an outstanding job. Our AUP program, we had 8 vacancies at the beginning of the year. We have no vacancies at this time. Our new division chief there is James Stevens, and he's done an outstanding job in finding the right people for all those vacancies that we've had. We've repurposed a number of the positions, and I think both programs look for a lot of growth this coming year. All right, so for my 3 ups, and this was the first full year of the AUX Scout program, and within this year, 8 auxiliary flotillas have managed to charter AUX Scout or Sea Scout ships, which is what they call their local units, which encompasses approximately 200 members, and they expand or span over 11 districts. We are second up is that we have increased interest from the district commodores across the country for both the AUX Scout as well as the AUP program. And to assist with this growth, we've developed in the first few months here new publications to be distributed when trying to recruit for both the AUX Scout and the AUP. We've also managed to update our websites for both of these programs. And we've created an actual checklist of how to start up an AUP unit, which then formalizes the process, and we can track what's happening in the program a lot better. Then just the impact of both of these youth programs in the sense of younger people is that in one flotilla alone up in the Northeast, the recruitment of the AUP or the AUP impact on that particular flotilla dropped the average age of the membership to about 7 years, the average age of the overall membership. So you think that's doesn't sound like a lot, but when you think of the average age being up in the 60s and 70s and dropping that now to the 40s and 50s, improvement as a result of this. So I think these two programs are doing exactly what they're hoping to do, which is to recruit new members and to recruit new younger members. Our third up is that the Coast Guard Recruiting Command, the active duty side, has a new centralized officer recruiting program. It will consist of 5 active duty officers where they're out trying to recruit for the active duty side of the Coast Guard. And traditionally, that's all been left more or less to the Coast Guard Academy. This is now looking and seeking candidates for OCS, people possibly with professional degrees, doctors, lawyers, and things like that. So what we are doing is we in dialogue with them. We've established this already. And we're hoping that the AUP program will be able to feed them potential CS graduates, as well as possibly increase the interest with our younger members, our Rock Scouts, and see if they would like considering pursuing going to the academy, but even more so to civilian schools where the AUP program is in existence, and therefore we would be able to help support the recruiting needs of the active duty Coast Guard. All right, for our 3 downs. Well, COVID has impacted the Coast Guard as a whole, to the whole society, and it's definitely affected our programs. We have younger people, they like to interact, and they haven't been able to do that very well due to the restrictions with COVID. However, we are using tech as much as possible with remote meetings and all that to get training done so that once the restrictions are lifted, that we can get our people out there doing the things that they joined the auxiliary to do. Therefore, we're expecting growth, hopefully once greater growth once things improve. Our second down is that even though Sea Scouts exist in almost all of the states, as I said previously, are only in 11 of the auxiliary districts, and we'd like to see more Sea Scout collaboration with the auxiliary in all of the 16 districts that exist. So we're looking for expansion, and in particular in the areas of the Midwest and the Pacific. Our last down at this point is that we find that we need a better way to capture how Aux Scouts are interacting with the auxiliary. We need to ensure that the auxiliarists are YPT or Youth Protection Trained compliant, and therefore we need to identify who the Aux Scout officer is when their YPT training has been completed and that it's been within the last 2 years, because that is a renewable every 2-year kind of requirement. So we want ideally for Aux Data 2 to be able to this kind of information so that we can readily pull this out and make sure that everyone who is functioning as an Aux Scout officer, a liaison, has the compliance and the summation of the student programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean Marie, for the important update to these valuable programs, which brings us back to Commodore Peter Jensen, the Assistant National Commodore for Performance Measurement and Student Programs. Peter?
Can somebody unmute me? Oh, here we go. Start. Okay, here we go. Lost in space there for a moment. All right. Actually, I'll need my slide put up if I may. Thank you so much. All right. Here are the condensed milestones for the Performance and Student Programs Group. The Student Programs Directorate may be brand new, but they really hit the ground running to meet our new objectives. So as you can see, from the color coding, we've completed our first 2 milestones. We have another 6 in progress, and finally, we'll get cracking on the last 4 later this spring. And we'll be striving for completion of all our current milestones by NACON in late August 2021. Well, there's a lot for us to do. The Aux Scout initiative, for all its commendable progress to date, is still in its infancy. The Auxiliary University Program, AUP for short, is undergoing some rejuvenation. So the main thrust of our strategic plan goal is to expand and strengthen both programs, and promotion is key. And the first area of promotion is right within the auxiliary family. We'll be working with the auxiliary's 16 districts to have more Sea Scout ships partnering with us, and also more on-campus program for AUP. And we particularly also seek to expand AUP to colleges with disadvantaged minorities. A second area of promotion is with the Coast Guard units near Aux Scout and AUP units, and also with Coast Guard Recruiting Command. AUP members and Aux Scout members can make excellent future candidates for the Coast Guard's enlisted and officer intake streams. The third area of promotion is with our auxiliary partners and our Sea Scout partners. Fact is, most college students and most Sea Scouts are not involved with the auxiliary, and we'd like to bring many more of these folks on board with us. And that leaves a fourth area of promotion, the general public. And towards this end, development of targeted public service announcements with a focus on AUP will soon be underway. And of course, that's one of our milestones, the strategic plan. And further to the strategic plan, we're striving for cooperation and synergy between the Aux Scout and AUP programs. After all, AUP is a natural step up for a teenager on the Aux Scout side when he's heading off to college, that he or she is heading off to college. And towards that end, we'll be adapting AUP STEM workshops for Aux Scout use, and we'll be incorporating Aux Scout achievements into the AUP program of study. We'll also be performing some key upgrades on both sides. For example, the AUP website is undergoing an overhaul, and the AUP program of study also needs to be updated. We need to get a better handle on our social media presence, and we need to develop a set of metrics to better gauge Aux Scout performance. As Gene McNamara has mentioned, the new auxiliary bridges have shown a lot of interest in both our both the Aux Scout program and an AUP. And as we start to emerge from the darkness of the pandemic, the future for both these programs is one full of promise. In closing, I would be remiss if I did not also note the strategic plan contributions of the Performance Measurement Directorate, or M. They work quietly and effectively to provide needed metrics to other stakeholders to help them attain their own strategic plan goals and milestones. And I'll end it there if anybody has any questions.
Commodore Jensen, once again, I am grateful for your contribution. I thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Team members, I have 18 hours, and it's time for us to enjoy a comfort break. So why don't we take 15 minutes and be back here at, let's say, 14:33 hours. Thank you. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Moving on with our robust agenda, now brings us to the Director of International Affairs, David Wang. David, please share with us your challenges and proud moments.
Thank you, Commodore Formato, Captain Johnson, Commodore Maluski, and members of OPCOM. My name is David Wang. I'm the Director of International Affairs for the Coast Guard Auxiliary, and my deputy is James Sullivan, who is on the opposite side of the world, so he is not able to join us today. Admiral Fagan touched on many of the things that we're working on in international affairs, so my presentation may sound a little familiar. Getting to our 3 Ups, we recently completed a data visualization project with active duty international affairs, where we're mapping the past and future foreign international engagements for all of U.S. Coast Guard's flag officers and SES personnel. Working with active duty, we have identified countries where we focus on, primarily in the Southeast Asian countries, Philippines, Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Oceania countries. We're mapping those out all over the world, and we're assigning flag officers to each one of those visits based on foreign engagement types, 4 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars, 1 star visits. So we're helping with that effort in the active duty. As you've probably heard in the latter part of the last year, the Russian Navy harassed the US fishing fleet in Alaska. In international affairs, all of our interpreters were involved. Our Russian interpreters were involved, from translating radio traffic to translating flag officer communications between the Russian Coast Guard, Russian Navy, as well as our admirals. So that's our second up. Auxiliary was actively involved in that. Right now, as you heard from Admiral Fagan, the IUU, Illegal, Unreported, Unregulated Fishing Strategic Outlook, was a Commandant's service-wide initiative. And we assigned multiple teams of interpreters for different languages. And these languages were translated for dissemination all across the world to our ally nations. And so those are our 3 ups. We're involved in many other things, but those are just some key highlights on what we're working on. Our 3 downs. We continue to have IT issues with regard to OXData 2 and WOW as we transitioned from OXData to OXData 2, but C Directorate has been extremely helpful, and they're aware of the situation and working with us on the resolution. The second down is because we are international, we plan certain visits to other countries, but the lack of budget on certain international engagements has prevented us from engaging on a much deeper level. We only listed 2, however, we do have a third down, which is we have a desperate need for interpreters for critical need, what we call critical needs languages. And those critical needs languages are Russian, Vietnam, Indonesian, Mandarin. And because those are critical needs languages, we're finding that we are turning down requests from the active duty for deployments, whether it's deployment on a cutter for 2 or 3 months or translation missions that's done from home. We are in desperate need of those languages. And unfortunately, sometimes we have to turn down active duty on their mission. But overall, I think we're moving forward on our mission statement, which is engaging active duty, helping active duty in many of the augmentation requests that they have. And our team is growing. And as deployments are coming in, we are meeting those needs. And that's all I got.
Thank you, David. Commodores and chiefs of staff, keeping in mind that those languages are so desperately needed, I see an opportunity here for some targeted recruiting. Hint, hint, hint. Okay, that brings us to the Director of Prevention, Kim Cole. Kim, please share with us.
Hi, good afternoon. Appreciate that. As you said, I am the new incoming Director of Prevention. I'd also like to give a shout out to my deputy, John McLeod, who is we are working very diligently on different items in prevention at this time. Prevention is, as you know, we are becoming very strong in the strategic plan this year. So many of our ups and downs are going to be in regards to that on certain items. Our division chiefs and our branch chiefs, branch assistants are really coming up to the table and doing a lot of good work on what we are expecting from them, and it's very good. One of our ups that we have is the fact that we now have some new key positions that we requested, and we're working actively to fill them. We filled several of them, and we're actively looking for more people that we need to put into these positions to be able to work more in the ways of the prevention outreach, UPVs, the commercial vessel activities, and also in the aids to navigations area. So you will see more from us on that, trying to find more people that is wanting to get on board with this. As far as strategic plan items go, I will go just a little bit into it because I know it's going to be discussed later. But our commercial vessel activities people, Will Sumner, who is a branch chief, Michael Mitchell, our division chief, John McLeod, George Peak, and Commodore Katie all actively worked in developing a UPV presentation that is now available on our prevention webpage. This is a refresher and orientation that was part of our strategic plan. Now we are going to expand further into that, and Commodore Katie, I believe, is going to speak more on that, but that part of it is complete and it's on the page now. We also are having our division chief for MSAM, who is working and making that as a online presentation, and that's going very well also. Our third up that we have is that we are developing online modules for what we would have produced for N-Train. Now, once these are complete, we will provide a Zoom presentation in order to give our DSOs more information and more training on what they can do where this is concerned. And now on our 3 downs that we have, one of the things that was really big in our 3 downs is the fact of C partners. That was in question. We are now going farther along with that. C partners is still a very viable mission in the prevention area. So we want to be sure that people are very well aware of it. We're working to get our staff who is involved with that, providing more leadership, getting the word out more, providing more in the way of online presentations that might be available, download materials, doing what we can to be able to produce more for our auxiliary members. We also will be working more in the way of American Waterway Watch, being able to do more with that. And we now are working with the student programs directorate as well to see what prevention can bring to the table of them on what we might be able to have their students be able to look at in the way of missions that the prevention department has. Our second down, unfortunately, there's nothing you can do to change that, is the fact that N-Train was canceled. So that there was nothing really we can do about that, but headquarters is working with us, and they have offered, they stood up and said that they will work with us in the future to possibly bring the DSOs into the next N-Train, or if NACON, possibly even going to NACON. We haven't discussed that further, but that was some of the options that we have been discussing. The last up we have, or down, excuse me, in our ports and facilities division, we are having them work on updating all of the PQS workbooks that are the most actively used in the auxiliary and needed by the Coast Guard. While we were doing this, we had found that the pollution responder PQS workbook, which was outdated in the auxiliary, was also very outdated where the Coast Guard was concerned. Now, in order to make sure the study guide was proper, we needed to get the most up-to-date information for that. And with the assistance of Commodore Katie, we have been able to find a contact at headquarters for that, and we have received a working copy of, they are updating that PQS at Coast Guard headquarters, and we have been able to get a working copy of that PQS workbook, and we are now in the process of mirroring the auxiliary PQS workbook to the Coast Guard workbook as well, and also developing study guide for that. With the thanks of Commodore Katie and with the people at Commercial Vessels Activity at headquarters, we're now also developing many contacts at headquarters with the program managers of the different missions that the prevention department does, which we didn't have before. So we are making we're working to make a stronger working prevention unit. And we hope to be able to expand that even farther as time goes along. And that is pretty much what I have.
Thank you, Kim. That was outstanding. Excellent use of time, by the way.
Good.
Okay, so I would like to, at this point in time, turn it over to the Director of Emergency Management and Disaster Response, Anthony Marzano. Anthony?
Good afternoon, Commodores. On behalf of myself and my deputy, Commodore Bob Tippett, wish you a good afternoon. For the Emergency Management and Disaster Response Directory, our first up is that our directorate has received staffing approvals to expand new positions that are key to fulfilling our expanded mission sets. As you know, last year was a landmark year We had 14 tropical storms or hurricanes that we provided support on, in addition to wildfires, a landslide in Alaska, volcanic eruptions in Hawaii, an earthquake in Puerto Rico, and COVID-19 on top of all of that. So these new positions are going to be key, and I want to thank NEXCOM for your support so that we can continue to increase the level and quality of service that we provide to you, to the DSOEMs in the districts who we support and partner with, to auxiliarists seeking to qualify in emergency management mission areas, and ultimately to the active duty Coast Guard in the form of additional augmentation capabilities across the auxiliary. Speaking of capabilities, that brings us to up number 2. We had 2 key gap strategy meetings that we conducted in December. One was internal to our directorate, and one was with principals of Coast Guard Office of Emergency Management. These meetings resulted in a draft strategy document that will be developed into specific objectives, tasks, and milestones to help us achieve our national strategic plan objectives related to gap analysis. I had the opportunity just this past week to present and pitch this at the CGOEM EMFR Virtual Symposium. And that's important because that opportunity got our auxiliary program in front of the active duty and civilian emergency management coordinators in all 37 sectors, as well as the district and area levels, and to let them know that the effort they put forth to provide information for gap analysis was heard by the auxiliary, that we're acting on it, and we'll be looking to them to partner with us as we recruit, train, and qualify auxiliarists to fill those roles they told us they needed more of in the gap analysis. Our third up, construction was completed on an Everbridge extract report, which has been a joint effort of the Q and C directorates. That is a major step towards more efficient updating of member information in Everbridge. The process has traditionally been entirely manual, using a script written over a decade ago that is very complex and cumbersome to execute. This new process, which we're in the final steps of operationalizing, is a major step forward in ensuring reliability of Everbridge as a critical communications resource for the auxiliary, allowing us to update more often, more efficiently, and with far less chance of critical errors occurring. In 3 downs, we didn't publish any. It's not that we haven't had our challenges in the past quarter, but as of our last submission in December, I'm happy to report that our previously identified challenges have been closed and resolved. So in my last minute, if I may, I wanted to highlight just a couple other things that Q is currently working on. We're in the planning process for a virtual symposium this spring for DSOEMs and ASCs to provide familiarity or refresh them on their roles in the emergency management program. We're planning an Everbridge orientation workshop and refresher for those who may be new to roles that now require access or use of Everbridge. We're working to improve the way we share information on situational awareness during large incidents, such as hurricanes, through our virtual IMAC team capabilities. Who knows, there may even be a situational awareness dashboard somewhere in our future. We're working with CGOEM to develop wider training and engagement opportunities for auxiliarists to support the Coast Guard's incident management software system. And we're providing auxiliary personnel to assist in various work groups and provide input to PQS updates with the Coast Guard's ICS steering committee. There's a lot going on in emergency management. We have a great staff working on it, and we appreciate the opportunity to give you a report.
Anthony, thank you so very much. And listening to your report, thinking of the hurricanes, the tropical storms, COVID, and all the challenges that your team has faced in the past 12 months, you've certainly earned your keep. Thank you so very much, and thank you for an outstanding report. Okay, which brings us to the Director of Response, Roy Savoca. Roy?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Commodore. This has been a very challenging year for us with COVID and all the hurricanes and everything you just mentioned, but we did the best that we could. We got out our fourth quarter responder. We did, during those hurricanes, 3 of them, the communication command from the Coast Guard asked us to provide communication support. Over the course of that, we had 32 active stations divided between the 3 and provided at least one instance of a distress vessel, which we copied down and relayed on to the Coast Guard. Everybody's aware of the fact that due to COVID, we weren't able to do QE missions this year, or we did very few. Because of that, this year, 2021, is going to create significant challenges. In the past, in 2020, we had 1,125 people scheduled needing QEs. In 21, there were 1,307 people needing QEs for a total of 2,400 QE check rides required, which is basically double what we normally do. With the help of my team, particularly my deputy, we looked into alternatives on how we could get this accomplished. We sent the report on to NEXCOM just recently, and we're waiting to hear which of we gave them a recommendation. We also gave them some alternatives, and now it's in their hands to select the correct way to proceed. Once we hear that, we'll figure out how we're going to support it. One thing that we did mention in our report is the fact that if we don't solve this problem for 2021, it's going to occur again in 2024, every 3 years. So part of our report talks about ways to alleviate that also. The downs that we had are relatively insignificant, and most of them are resolving themselves or at least moving in the correct direction, so there's no point mentioning them. For 2021, response is looking to improve safety, improve professionalism, and improve proficiency. 3 things that are all tied together anyway. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Roy, I got to tell you, you've got some great goals going forward there, and self-resolving challenges. Nothing can make me happier. Thank you much for your report, which brings me to the Assistant National Commodore for Response and Prevention, Commodore Kevin Cady. Kevin, if you would.
Would.
Unmute, Kevin.
What's that?
You're up, Kevin.
Am I on, Commodore?
I hear you now. Here's some feedback, though.
You need to mute one of your devices.
Thank you,
You can
Commodore,
only
for
use-
this opportunity. I wish to acknowledge my teammates, Deputy National Commodore Rick Saunders and Deputy National Commodore or Assistant National Commodore Rick Saunders, and Dean Ako, Mary Kirkwood, and the 4 directors and their capable staff that make up the RP group. The Response and Prevention Group continues to embrace the results derived from Gap Analysis 2019 by incorporating the current goals and objective initiatives into the strategic plan. Because the RP group of directorates encompasses the operations aspect of the auxiliary, it is my mandate as a NACO to ensure the direction provided under Gap Analysis by every sector command in the Coast Guard remains a priority. The areas of operation deemed a priority by district and sector commands are dovetailed into these mandated strategic plan goals and objectives where relevant. To be certain, the Gap Analysis 2019 results are key in guiding the operational direction of the Coast Guard Auxiliary. So my first element is the strategic plan initiative to enhance auxiliary relevance to the Coast Guard by continuing to identify and refine what the active duty needs from local auxiliary units. So in doing that for us, Response Director Roy Savoca, he mentioned some of this, has appointed team members to a working group to report back on a method to foster a stronger partnership with the active duty aviation side. There is a current ongoing initiative to ensure standardization in FAA call signs and also for AUX-Air uniform standardization where similar to that of the active duty air operations side. Continuing with aviation, aviation side has two new branch chief positions. One is instructor pilot flight examiner, and the second is surface side chief qualification examiner liaison. Commodore King is taking an active role in the National QE program, and I thank Commodore King for accepting that challenge and assisting us. Under Gap Analysis, the top three wants by sector commands listed a need and want for more coxswains, boat crew, and facilities. Therefore, as Roy Savoca just mentioned, there was an in-depth, concise review of the QE program that was conducted by Director Savoca and also Commodore Michelle Thornton. And that analysis brought forth recommendations up to NEXCOM. And as he said, it looks at the backlog due to COVID-19 of QE check rides. So in keeping with the Gap Analysis 2019 of more coxswains, boat crew, and facilities, we're looking to make sure that we have coxswains that are qualified and capable to move forward through 2023. Moving on to emergency management, Director Anthony Marzano is creating a plan to address recruitment, retention, and training efforts in conjunction with the DSO emergency managers specific to the 6 top mission needs by sector as determined by Gap Analysis 2019. So that's moving forward. Under the Auxiliary Interpreter Corps augmentation, Director David Wong's on track with his work. He's completed 3 already goals and objectives, and is working on further ones. International Affairs is collaborating consistently with district commodores and DSOs, seeking assistance in filling the ADSO positions. Response is very positive with for him, and he's doing a good job getting that one done. Also, International Affairs, they're doing a bazillion things, but they're working with DCOI, which is at Coast Guard headquarters. They've provided a list of countries on their priority list for engagement activities, and having us look for opportunities overseas, specifically driving the Indo-PACOM region with auxiliary assistance. 3 countries in this area that are part of the Core Comprehensive Security Agreement framework, where the Coast Guard devotes the most time and attention to a partner nation. The Philippines, Indonesia, and Vietnam, with Malaysia included, but not inclusive of that Core Comprehensive Security Agreement. Also, proud to say that the Coast Guard Auxiliary Detachment in Singapore is on track for establishment this year. That's a first for the Coast Guard, and it bodes well for international affairs. Under foster and auxiliary-wide prevention focus, Kim Cole just talked a lot about what I have down here, but one issue we're dealing with is, as she said, C Partners is being, the funding's being eliminated by CGFAC. I've had conversations as early as yesterday with headquarters about that. We're looking to see if we can find a different funding stream for materials, but we're also pushing the grant funding through Ox Association to try to keep that program going. And we're going to keep it going, but we're looking for the funding. Also, Prevention Director Kim Cole is collaborating with the S Directorate to incorporate prevention mission activities into the Ox Scout and AUP programs. We've heard a lot about that today. We're going to try to bring into the prevention side to assist Ox Scouting and the AUP program. So we're collaborating closely with them. Under the performance qualification standard, Kim mentioned it, but UPV PQS workbook is up. It's what we're trying to do is reinvigorate the program and also the commercial fish program, and getting the word out to membership that it's an area that we want to move forward. The Ox pollution responder PQS is under revision for the draft, and we're looking at all the other marine safety qualifications to bring up to standard. Under revised corresponding study guides, those are in place. We'll be sending that out to the chain leadership for approval. And lastly, I would like to take this opportunity to send a sincere thanks to Captain Scott Johnson for his unwavering support over the past few years. You, sir, inspire and are the personification of the type of leader we all strive to become. Good luck in retirement, sir. That's all I have, Commodore.
Thank you, Commodore.
Hey, Kevin, I appreciate your kind words, Kevin. Thank you.
Okay, that will now bring us to the Director of Recreational Boat and Safety Outreach, Chris Wilson.
Thank you, Commodore, and good afternoon, everyone. You know, as the Commodore mentioned, I am the Director for Recreational Boating Safety Outreach, otherwise known as the B Directorate. What do we do over at the B Directorate? We provide assistance for recreational boating safety programs to the Coast Guard units, auxiliary national directorates, auxiliary districts, auxiliary membership. We provide information and physical resources to auxiliary members, and we liaison with state agencies and boating safety organizations. So to get into the 3 ups, I first wanted to say we couldn't do this without the outstanding staff we have in the B Directorate. My deputy director is Nan Ellen Fuller. She does an amazing job. So let's move on to the 3 ups. District Liaison Division, they have turned in updates to the State Liaison Officers Guide and Exam, and that is complete. The finished product was submitted for NEXCOM and approval and adoption. So we're really proud to get that done. RBS Outreach Liaison Division have performed, I'm going to mention MOAs, which are Memorandum of Agreements. So we have a signed agreement with the Bass LLC. It was approved and signed by all parties, which we're very proud of. The division also submitted an MOA with National Safe Boating Council, and that's for review and approval by the chain of leadership. We are currently under, in addition, reaching out to the International Marine Electronics Alliance and also the National Marine Electronics Association for possible MOAs. The Paddlecraft Safety Division has been working with the Auxiliary Association grant staff to submit a grant application to provide resources to train auxiliaries in inductory paddling, paddlecraft operators, and as AUXPAD qualifiers. So we're happy to report that Monday, this grant application should be moving forward. From the Communication Service Division, the division completed the fourth quarter edition of the RBS Job 1. The December 2020 edition was published on L2 and is posted on the website. If you haven't had the opportunity to take a look at that, please take a look at that edition. I think it was excellent and really well thought of. So please take a look. The team put a lot of work into it. As far as the down, we have, COVID-19 has postponed or canceled many planned RBS partner activities and events. Significant adverse impact on traditional RBS activities. So really that's all we have as a down. I want to say very proud to work in the RB group. We have 3 directorates that make up the RB group, and really we look at ourselves as one because we work together as a team in everything we do. Thank you, Commodore.
Thank you, Chris. That was excellent. And as all our members are very much aware, our job 1 is RBS. It's recreational boating safety. We are America's volunteer lifesavers. Thank you. That brings us to Director of Public Education, Dave Fuller. Dave, if you'd be so kind.
Thank you, Commodore. Good afternoon to all. On behalf of the entire E-Directorate team, including Bob Brandenstein, the Deputy Director, I'm proud to deliver this brief report on the work of the professionals in the Education Directorate. While 2020 caused all of us to change course and some auxiliary missions to ground to a halt, the E-Directorate pivoted and engaged with the sudden challenge that was presented to us. The desire to offer public education classes virtually had been on our radar, but was not front and center until the pandemic put it there. Unsurprisingly, that became our #1 up. So here they are. #1, development of the virtual classroom and posting of the resources and best practices on our website. Without this groundbreaking work, education would have come to a complete standstill. Our dedicated team of professionals worked across silos as true teammates to deliver the tools that flotillas needed to teach classes. And they did it in record time with high quality results. The second up, simultaneously with our work on virtual delivery of education, we continued to work on NASBLA, that's the National Association of State Boating Law Administrators, NASBLA conformance certification for our certificate courses. As a result, NASBLA has extended the exemption for virtual classes in most states to December 31, 2021. During 2021, NASBLA will be working on development of a new standard for certification of virtual classrooms to parallel the standard for in-person classrooms. This means flotillas will have the ability in the future to offer both in-person and virtual classroom sessions for our students and continue to fulfill the RBS mission. Our third up was that we finally selected the Maxim Award winners for 2019. Although the winners were to be announced at NACON 2020, the cancellation of the conference delayed the announcement. Our initial regional winners from Atlantic East, Atlantic West, and Pacific regions competed for the overall Maxim Award, and the inaugural Maxim Award winner was Judy Bidwick from District 7. Flotillas will soon be selecting their nominees for 2020 instructor performance to compete for the award. This report also addresses our 3 greatest challenges. First on that list is that communications to the deck plate continues to be our biggest challenge, as it's long been a serious challenge to the entire organization. We are addressing it in 2021 with an E-Directorate blog for national, district, division, and flotilla level PE officers, as well as individual instructors. Bloggers will regularly contribute short informal messages of interest to instructors and PE officers at all levels. The Education Directorate blog was just announced within the past week and is starting to gain followers. Second on our list of challenges, input and accuracy of classes and numbers of students in AUX Data 2 is a serious issue resulting in unreliable data for our use. This data is critical in decision-making, not just for the E-Directorate, but also our national and state partners when they request statistical information from us, such as numbers of students taught and classes held. Currently, we cannot give them data with confidence that it's correct. The E-Directorate is addressing this in 2021 with a just launched tutorial for FSO PEs to walk them through a step-by-step process for entering their class data. We greatly appreciate the assistance of the U-Directorate on this critical project. And last, our last challenge is lack of a system to have institutional memory of graduates to use for future marketing of classes and replacement of certificates for graduates. Our previous system, AUX plus PE6, was past end of life several years ago as it was designed on a platform no longer supported. We delivered a white paper with our wish list of capability for a replacement that possibly could be a part of AUX Data 2, but there has been no progress on this initiative in over a year. Commodore, I could go on for over an hour or more telling you all the stories of the great work this team is doing and has planned for 2021, but the time constraints, of course, make that impossible. It's very much a special honor for me to be the leader of this group. Thank you very much. That's the report of the E-Directorate.
Dave, thank you so much for that thorough and comprehensive report. We'll now turn the virtual mic over to Assistant National Commodore for I'm sorry. I skipped one to the Director of Vessel Exams and Partner Visitation, Jim Cortez. Jim, you just popped up on my screen, so thank you so much. Your timing couldn't be better, brother. It's all yours.
Thanks for the inclusion. Hey, I just wanted to give a shout out to my deputy, Paul Saab, out on the West Coast. He's a West Coast fire chief, and if you know what's going on or has been going on in California, you know what his life's all about. Plus, he is also the resource coordinator for delivering the COVID vaccine to his teams out there. So he's got a lot going on. And that kind of just reminded me, and really this kind of goes from top to bottom on the list today, that, you know, I'm pretty impressed with just how these people that we deal with, from Paul to BSX to you to all the people that are listening on the call, how they have the ability to switch gears and always find that higher gear when the demands call for it without ever shutting the engine off. And I do appreciate, you know, all the help we've gotten in the directorate from other people, from Paul, from other resources on the team, and BSX also. So I wanted to start out by just bragging a little bit about some of the things that are going on in our 3-ups. And that's, I'll start with the partner visitation manual update. The guidance that we're including in there is broadening with the sales of vessels to include paddlecraft. And so it's been some time since that's been revised. We're looking to get that approved so that we can go back, revise the tests, and broaden our scope of services to the public. The second thing is we've done some baseline testing with electronic intake forms for the 7012, 7012A, which are the primary forms used for vessel examinations. And we've met great success with that. We're looking forward. We've just turned in a proposal to take full advantage of the Salesforce forms activity logs that are available there, and the strength of that system to help make this a better environment for data capture, and also being able to use that data then to tailor the RBS programs more specifically to the needs of the recreational boater public. So that is in the works also. And our partnership with the Power Squadron has continued to strengthen. We need them now more than ever, as the numbers of vessel examiners dwindle, we need more partners to cover the vast amount of even increasing demands for people that need vessel exams across the country. They are mirroring, just a word on the Power Squadron, they are mirroring our 2020 qualification forgiveness policy, if you will, just for simple terms, and for qualification and awards at their end. So for our downs, we have a focus now on revising the vessel examination testing and certification requirements. Things have changed over the years. We want to make that program much more relevant and a fair testing process also to address the dwindling membership that we've got to qualify to take part in that mission. A secondary concern is the safety protocols and restrictions that everybody else has, but that really affects this directorate more than most, because what we do in person. We have to touch vessels. We have to do things that do require us to be there. Although there are virtual alternatives, we are looking to perhaps expand that alternatives. It's really important to us that we have a consistent message going out through the districts, so that we remain focused on the vision and the mission for recreational boater safety with vessel safety checks and RBS and our partner visits. And since the pandemic's a temporary thing, we've gotten a lot of questions about currency versus the RBS award. So there was guidance that came out from BSX on currency, but we are also looking to address the RBS award qualification, because those who have qualified in 2019 may have a gap year in 2020 because of the restrictions based on their area. And we don't want to penalize the auxiliaries who's put forth the effort. So we're looking at making a recommendation to have a 2020 gap year, so that if an auxiliary met the requirement in 2019, they can complete the requirement for their 120 hours in 2020. And the combination of those two would still count as if they were consecutive. Commodore, that's the end of my report. Thank you very much, sir.
Jim, I thank you, and I thank you for your timely popping up on my screen to help me see the error of my ways. Thank you, brother. Okay, now we'll turn this over to the Assistant National Commodore, RB for Recreational Boating Safety, Commodore Robert Lauer. Bob?
Good afternoon, everyone. RBS greetings to our NACO, Alex Maluski, Vice NACO, Gus Cremato, Captain Johnson, and to all of the OPCOM. And it's certainly an honor and a privilege to be here and talk with you a little while today. The RBS directors, how would you like to follow those three folks that just went ahead of me? They pretty much have said it all. But under the watchful eyes of Dave Fuller and Chris Wilson, Jim Cortez, these guys have demonstrated a great performance and developed outstanding accomplishments, even though they're relatively new in their positions, and they continue to move forward at a breakneck pace and produce new and what I call innovative products and strategies that'll be used by our districts and our boating partners. Their unselfish approach and their availability 24/7, along with their quick response to changing conditions, are a major benefit to our entire organization. Either we were lucky or we weren't so lucky in the fact that we were not affected by the COVID slowdown. They continue to produce products and services during the downtime, while most of the nation and most of the national folks were down. So there's been a lot of good news on a lot of fronts. The progress of B, E, and V during the 3 ups and 3 downs, those results and observations reflect the hard work and enthusiasm and sense of energy as it relates to our recreational boating safety. Our directorates have performed well against the Commodore strategic plan, with many action items either complete or in process. And as you all may know or may not know, RBS has got 26 different items on that list. And I've decided just to touch on a few as we go forward here. As all of you are aware, it's of vital importance that the members and leadership of RBS populate all the boards and committees that affect safe boating legislation, education, and vessel component manufacturing. Currently, we have Dave Fuller and Bob Brandenstein on the NASBLA Education Standards Panel, and I'll be representing the auxiliary on the National Safe Boating Council. Currently, we're trying to determine other opportunities where the auxiliary can lead and advise our partners in the safe boating arena. One of our biggest responsibilities, it's a kind of an ongoing process, is getting the RBS word out. And you heard a little bit from Mr. Fuller about that. Currently, the B Directorate is partnering with A to improve our performance during the Safe Boating Week through both conventional methods and greater social media interactions. Locally, E has initiated quarterly meetings with the district chiefs of staff and the DSOPEs to keep districts up to speed in the latest and greatest information and techniques that affect their boating education process. Education has worked hard in bringing our PE partners up to speed through that process. They also held an online instructor development course designed to be a train the trainer for instructors. We had 100 people apply for the 20 positions that were available. The course had some outstanding results, and now many of the participants are now training the trainers in their local districts. Another class is currently being scheduled. E is also partnered with the districts by providing workshops at the district D trains. It's another opportunity to share best practices and techniques with PE folks nationally. And the good news, as you heard from Jim Cortez, that he's been working diligently to update the VE and PV manuals and corresponding tests. The goal is to upgrade the manuals and bring the test closer to the manual details, and the changes that are underway will improve member involvement and member satisfaction. These days, paddlecraft education is on everyone's mind. B and his partners are developing evidence-based programs aimed at inexperienced paddlers. At this point, great progress is being made. Other efforts in the paddlecraft are the development of venue-specific programs, uniform specifications, and opportunities for operator training, along with discussions on the operator training facilities or centers. We are very fortunate to have Mr. Robin Pope on deck as our division chief for paddlecraft training. I expect great things from Robin and his group as we move forward. It's more good news from V is Jim Cortez and his staff have been working overtime to develop systems that will provide our organization and its partners needed VE and PV data generated from the forms used in the various missions. The data generated by this information will help guide us as we move forward, it'll help us determine how we train the public in the aspects of safe boating. At this time, several proposals have been forwarded. One is currently being evaluated by the chain of leadership. And we're looking forward to the data provided, allowing us to respond to the public's needs faster, resulting in a safer boating experience for our boating partners. The E-Directorate library, the E-Directorate's gone through their library and done a complete review on the products that we currently offer, the products and seminars. And, sorry, I got lost here. And they prioritized BS&S for a refresh. The refresh will permit the use of the BS&S core as a certificate course and allow for the standalone modules to be used for designing courses to fit in the local needs. E is also working on a pre-teen and teen courses, a set of courses. They're developing best practices for units to use to approach schools and get our foot in the door to provide preteen and teen safe boating education. He's assembled a product matrix of 40 opportunities that will benefit our boating customers. It serves as a prioritization device and execution tool, complete with staffing information that keeps the directorate on course. That course provides far-sighted solutions with ideal results. Recently, RBS directorates partnered with the association grant experts to develop a grant that will improve our performance in the paddlecraft arena. This grant will allow us to develop learning templates using existing resources for classroom training of members in the 6 areas of the country: the Southwest, the Mid-Atlantic, New England, Great Lakes, Pacific, and Southwest. This program will see the establishment of training centers and additional classroom and on-water training. Also in the plan is the development of a sustaining paddlecraft instructor program. We are pleased our application has been forwarded and look forward to the next step. Many thanks to the RBS directorates for everything that they do. It's truly an honor for me to represent them. Respectfully submitted, sir.
Commodore Lauer, thank you very much. As most of you know, I have a very strong connection to the RB directorates. I had the honor of supporting them 2 years previously, and I can't say enough about how proud I am of all the great things that you're doing, as well as all of our other directorates. That's why it's so important that our members realize all this fine work that's going on in every single directorate. And I'm very happy that we were able to open this up to so many members via YouTube, where we wouldn't have been able to do so had we done this in face-to-face in St. Louis. So many members can now see all the different directorates, what they do, and the amazing job they're doing. Thank you, Commodore. Okay, so that brings us to public affairs. Director of Public Affairs, Lourdes Oliveros.
Good afternoon and greetings to all from Puerto Rico. On behalf of our deputy directors, Mary Patton, Sean Peoples, and our amazing and outstanding staff, here are the ops of the Public Affairs A Directorate. NAVEX Express third quarter was completed and published under the efforts and follow-up of the new leadership. NAVEX Express fourth quarter has been completed and is undergoing the final revisions to be published. The Navigator 2019 issue was completed, mailed to members, and posted on the Directorate website. The Navigator 2020 issue is running on time and on schedule. 4 branches have been spun off from the Public Relations Division into a new auxiliary support division in order to provide a more efficient and manageable structure. Successful creation and postings of good news under the new website, Out What's New, within the A Directorate webpage has been added. Updated the A Directorate webpage with a new, fresh, colorful look and new banners on all its sites. The Sea Scouts page was completed and posted on our homepage, as well as the Float Plan Central information. Updated of the AUX-PA Specialist Certification Explainer animation video was completed and awaiting for review to be posted. Our graphics branch has done outstanding work on designing logos, challenge coins, and brochures for fellow directorates, districts, divisions, and flotillas. Updated the Auxiliary University Program brochure for the Student Programs Directorate. Our directorate offered a photography academy with 124 enrolled students and a weekly attendance of 58 to 84 members. Updated the Twitter and Facebook social media cover photos for brand recognition. Our auxiliary Facebook post has grown from 20,310 followers on March 2020 to 23,381 up to date. That's an increase of 3,071 followers. A social media guidebook is actually on its last revisions. The winners for the last National Public Affairs contest were posted. Our training division data shows a total of 39 oral boards performed for an estimated 386 certified AUX-PA specialists up to date. Our AUX 12 Public Affairs C-School is scheduled for NACON 2021 if COVID-19 allows it. The new revised AUX-PA Specialist Certification PQS for all 3 levels are in the final revision stage, as well as the oral board workbook. Our history division is developing the virtual museum of the Coast Guard Auxiliary as one of their projects. Now we're going to talk a little bit about our down and challenges. We continue with the search for a new editor of the Navigator magazine. Currently, this has been filled by our publications division chief on an interim basis, and he's doing a fantastic work. Need assistance in securing biographies and photos of NACO and National Bridge members for Navigator publication, and publications division will be recruiting needed article writers for our new posting assignments. Thanks, Commodore, and all for your attention. That's all for my report.
Thank you so much. That was excellent. We've all determined that people gather news in a different manner today than they did years ago. So, as you know, it's very important to me that we increase our footprint in social media, and you're doing an absolutely fantastic job with that. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Commodore.
Okay, that brings us to the Director of Human Resources, Lee Zimmerman. Lee, please.
Good afternoon, shipmates. Thank you for allowing me to give you this brief update. I'd also like to introduce my outstanding deputies. Deputies include Douglas Caldwell and Andrea Mazzarani. You probably recognize both of those names. I'm sure at some point both of those guys have helped you at one point or another. As far as our ups, the Coast Guard direct support during COVID pandemic showcased the abilities of the auxiliary healthcare support team and auxiliary chaplains, providing much needed support to active and reserve Coast Guard units ashore and afloat. There was a call for pharmacist qualified auxiliaries that came out, and the health care support team was able to provide that kind of support right away. We have also looked at auxiliary flight surgeons conducting flight physicals for the Coast Guard Academy cadets during this time of need. The auxiliary chief medical officer has established an excellent rapport with CG11 and HSWL, as CG11 recognizes the capabilities of the AUX care professionals. We're currently evaluating the expansion into behavioral support services and considering the merits of broadening AUX healthcare disciplines to include podiatrists, social workers, and other healthcare professionals. We have provided this direct support during this challenging time. Another up is while a significant portion of our activities in the auxiliary have been impacted, we continue to see a trickle of new member applications. Even though our AAMS Join Us software has been compromised, we continue to get new member prospect introductions through various methods. Our team in the inquiries branch continues to remain actively engaged. The challenge is working then to make sure that once we have vetted a new prospect to make sure that the deck plate at the flotilla level has the ability to reach out in a virtual manner. In response to the request by Commodore King, our third up, the uniforms branch created the comprehensive uniform PowerPoint that you see now on our webpage. This goal was to create bite-sized training modules, breaking down our various uniform components into something that could be used as a presentation at a flotilla meeting or a division meeting. These MT-sized PowerPoint presentations, for the most part, deal with our common uniforms, and they are well suited for training offerings. Our downs, we have a DODI background check process that continues to impede the progress of our AUX health care providers. The ability to obtain ALAC cards, which is integral to our Coast Guard support capabilities. Currently, the application process is rigorous, as you would expect, and the process can take 9 to 12 months to complete for our teams to actively engage in direct support. That's probably too long. Additionally, while we have enjoyed numerous applicants in this ACS program from our Atlantic districts, the Chief Chaplain for the Coast Guard is asking for district leadership to help build this same ACS in the Atlantic, West, and Pacific AORs. Also noted during COVID, there have been very few or a few instances of the DIROCs having held strong on no auxiliary activity during the pandemic. That has played a significant role in our ability as we dug down into that information. We found that local flotillas were not responding to new prospects simply because they weren't meeting except remotely, and they didn't have activities to include the new members in. So we do have the ability to the division and flotilla, and yet we still continue to see this no contact issue. So we'd like to talk again for the assistance of our district bridges to help drive that message to the flotillas. We leave no lead on the table. All leads must be contacted. One of the things that we found too during this last year, the routine activities might have been severely impacted, but this period should have been a great opportunity to complete online training. During this time, our AP numbers have really not shifted. For an AP member to attain IQ or BQ status, they must complete the AUX-CT and BCQ-11 post, and nearly 10% of our membership is still unable to contribute to auxiliary or team Coast Guard because of this. We really could use during this lull time, if you will, an emphasis on the training to get our AP numbers shifted. We also have something to watch for. We're in the development stages of a new recruiting effort with the families of newly enlisted or graduated Coasties. The active duty family is a target market for us to look at recruiting for new members. Watch for that. We'll be including information that goes out. This may actually help our other recruiting efforts. And lastly, those watching on YouTube may want to consider applying for the open positions that you hear us talk about. All the directors are talking about that we're mentioning on this call. And with that, back to you, Commodore.
Thank you, Lee. That was outstanding. Okay, bringing us to the Director of Training, Gerlinde Higginbotham. Please share with us.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gerlinde Higginbotham, Director of Training. I'd like to introduce my deputy, Michael Griffith. You'll get a chance to meet him at NACON. He's on YouTube right now. Our UPS, Operational Auxiliaries Courses. There has been an increase in the auxiliary members achieving OXOP status as a result of the temporary suspension of proctoring. The Auxiliary Flotilla Leadership course continues to grow in popularity. This course has set the standard for auxiliary instructed, facilitated online training and has been well received by both students and instructors. We also corrected the Auxiliary Navigation Specialty course, Part A and B, on our OXOP webpage under elective courses to read that a member must take both parts to receive 2 credits. The Advanced Learning Division is completely being refreshed to help update our operational courses to be instructor-led online courses. The Advanced Learning Division has redeveloped a number of common media elements used in multiple courses to ensure they were free of Flash formatted content so they could continue to be used without disruption or diminish the learner experience. Our second up, Ox Classroom. The Distance Learning Education Tech Training course was successfully presented at InTrain 2020. The distance learning course has been redeveloped to reflect the true purpose of training to learning-focused auxiliarists as an online learning experience. Our third up, Leadership Development. We worked with the H Directorate to develop online component to the new Coast Guard Recruiting Support Program. This should be available Q1 of 2021. There has been an increase in members taking and completing the Leadership Development Program. However, we do have some districts that have shown low interest in the program. Our challenges. Number 1, software upgrades. Despite having access to the new Moodle environment, we were unable to move our existing content to the new environment due to technical requirements and limitations that are not controlled by the T Directorate. These can be resolved by the C Directorate. These limitations have resulted in our inability to maintain the new Moodle environment at the standard level of functionality and security required. All of this has ultimately prevented our transition to the new Moodle fully and the full deployment of learning during a time where online learning is mission critical. Our second challenge, operational auxiliaries courses. Ox Navigation, OXC, Ox Patrol are still at NextCom and BSX in the process of final review. Our last challenge, leadership certificates. All the leadership development training materials are available and members are completing the various levels. Our challenge is that the certificate process is overly complex. We don't have a place to put their achievements into Ox data, which requires manual verification by the DSO MTs, my staff, and for the directs to document the achievement in Ox data. When the list of completions is sent to the directs, they can't sometimes access certificates to print them out for the members. We will continue to work with the U Directorate on the certificate problem and BSX on the Ox data issues. Amanda Constant is assembling a committee early Q1 2021 to include some members of my directorate to begin to work on a plan to resolve some of the above issues. Thank you very much for letting me present today.
Gerlinda, thank you so much for sharing with us. Training is so important to each of us. It's one of the greatest things we can do for our members. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd now like to turn this over to the Assistant National Commodore for FORCECOM, Commodore Greg Kester. Greg?
Good afternoon. On behalf of myself and my Deputy Director, Tom Siniglio, I'd like to thank all of you for participating in this OPCOM virtually. This has been a very marvelous way of getting the general membership to understand what the national staff does at these conferences. In terms of our milestones on our strategic plan. We've met the milestones pertaining to our OXData 2 issues. One of our milestones was to get a standard operating procedure for our food services, and that's been sent to BSX and is currently in the process of being handled within BSX and the Coast Guard headquarters partners. Identifying the Coast Guard requirements for augmentation in Coast Guard recruiting, clergy support, healthcare, food service based on the gap analysis is pretty much an ongoing affair. COVID has obviously been a factor in how we handle and the Coast Guard handles auxiliary support. As Lee Zimmerman indicated, we were tasked with trying to assist with the locating pharmacists and behavioral healthcare personnel. Again, a lot of this is related to our COVID situation that we're in right now. We have also worked on a certificate recognizing new members that have completed their BQ status within a certain period of time. The certificate is complete. We're going to make a recommendation to NEXCOM that it be the same length of time that the original challenge coins that were used in the prior administration would be required to get it authorized. We're constantly updating and developing new materials on social media to steer prospective members to the national website. Again, I don't want to get into the situation of discussing the auxiliary application management system. I think our fellow directorates, C and the H directorate, have been working on this diligently, and I fully expect that the Coast Guard will come to a resolution in due time on that issue. We are definitely working and continuing to work on outlining and recruiting for potential members in the Marine Environmental Protection and the emergency management programs. That is an ongoing process, and we're probably going to see some extension of the time that we actually requested on that, just because of the fact that you know, we are running into issues with the COVID situation and so forth. Research, develop, and maintain an online catalog for flotilla best practices in both recruiting and retention. This is definitely ongoing. We're progressing very effectively, and we should have that completed within a matter of a few more months. Beyond that, again, I'd like to shout out to my directors in Lourdes, Lee, and Gerlinde for maintaining high standards and doing an outstanding job in reaching the goals and objectives of this administration. With that, thank you very much, Commodore.
Commodore, that was excellent. Your directors, your directorates are doing an amazing job. And I won't speak too long on that, because I know that right now I am withstanding between everyone and a break. So why don't you rejoin us back here in 15 minutes, which should be approximately 16:03.
Ernest Hemingway, Old Man of the Sea kind of look. Looks great.
Say again, please.
You look like a Ernest Hemingway, Old Man of the Sea. That's a great look.
Yeah, the Ernest Hemingway reference is great. That other part of it, yeah, I'm not so sure.
Commodore Cream, for as much as I love seeing you and your appearance, I need you to know that you're broadcasting.
Understood, sir.
Okay, I now surrender the virtual mic to you, my friend.
Very well. Am I on, sir?
You are.
Well, thank you. 15 minutes for the rest break and 5 minutes for the lawyer. I'm glad to see that we have our priorities exactly the way they should be. Good afternoon, everybody. So good afternoon, Captain Johnson, sir, our Chief Director, Commander Cruz, our Deputy Chief, and of course, Steve Minutullo, Chief Administration, and Master Chief O'Connell, Chief of Operations. Good afternoon to all, and good afternoon to all of my shipmates. So what kind of a year was 2020 for us in the Office of Counsel? Well, just like all the rest of you, it was pretty darn hectic. It was also, for me, the opportunity to work most closely with our wartime National Commodore and ship driver, nuclear scientist, and swell guy, Commodore King. And together, we took on this challenge that COVID brought to us and brought to all the rest of my shipmates as well. For us, it was something of an extraordinary challenge because we had to figure out, and as Commodore Malusky mentioned, we were forced to be kicked into the 21st century. There had been some preparation done in advance last year and the year before with respect to meetings by electronic means, but not so much as far as voting by electronic means, because the attitude of the Commandant, as expressed in the Commandant instruction, has always been that elections should be done face-to-face, and that meetings, unless there was some extraordinary reason, should also be done face-to-face. Well, I don't think anybody would disagree that this year, or in 2020, there was an extraordinary reason why those things had to be done other than face-to-face. And that required not only the cooperation of all of the shipmates involved, all of the auxiliaries, but it also required the extraordinary leadership and assistance of our Chief Director, Captain Johnson, our Deputy Chief Director, Commander Cruz, and of course, Steve Minutullo, Chief of Administration, without whom I am here to tell you that the Coast Guard Auxiliary would come to a screeching halt. I can see him blushing from here, but he knows, I don't know if he knows it's true. Those of us who have worked with him know that it's true. So what all did that mean? What did we have to do in order to gear up for voting and meetings by electronic means during 2020? Well, first of all, let's define the scope of the problem. There are 772 flotillas, 160 divisions, and 16 districts, meaning that there were about 948 units with a total, are you sitting down? 1,900 elected officers throughout the auxiliary. And all of the elections that needed to go forward needed to be done virtually. And we just did not have the legal regulatory framework in place to make that happen. So with the assistance and under the direction of Commodore King, and with the assistance, the very able, extraordinary assistance of Patrick Brown, and the staff at the Office of BSX, the Chief Director, there were multiple guidance documents, all AUXes, standard operating procedures that were written and distributed to help us all get through that. But you know, it wasn't enough to write all of those guidance documents, although that was a Herculean task, but we had to make sure that everyone who was going to be using those documents understood them. And that's where the staff, the district staff officers, the legal officers, all 16, came together along with Pat Brown, who was able to arrange virtual meetings for the DSOLPs, joined in by all of the district commodores who chose to attend, their district chiefs of staff, and we held multiple educational seminars for all of those folks on how on earth to do this and how to get it done. And you know, out of all of the elections that took place, there were certainly a couple of hiccups. The one most notable was involved when the DSOLP was not well enough to attend, and things went a little bit off the rails. But with the assistance of Commodore King and the extraordinary assistance of the Chief Director's Office, even that got taken care of. And so there was I want to use the word virtual because it's kind of an overused word, but there was virtually no problems in the election. Thank goodness for the understanding of our chief director, who said, okay, nominations from the floor would be waived this year. With that assistance, we were able to get every one of those elections done, some with some hiccups, some not so much, but they got done. So a huge bravo Zulu to that office for helping us out. And of course, the rest of the business of the auxiliary went forward. So we did some reviews of standard operating procedures. We're doing them now for food service. You heard some of the directors talk about memoranda of agreement between some of our partners. Again, those come up to NextCom, and I get the opportunity to review them along with the rest of the National Executive Committee to make sure that the partnership agreements and the other documents that are being prepared by our staff meet the requirements, both in terms of federal statutes, federal regulations, and very importantly, the Commandant instructions, with which I know we're all familiar because I'm sure everyone has sat down and read the auxiliary manual from cover to cover. And while we're talking about that, I do want to tell you, coming forward, the district staff officers are going to be holding mini law schools for all of the elected leaders of the auxiliary to help those who might need a little bit of guidance working through the some of the portions of the auxiliary manual. It's something like 780 pages. You're not going to have to memorize it all. There won't be a test at the end, but it will help you leaders, you elected leaders, to do your job just a little bit better. Let me close with one request to everyone who's listening, including members who are on YouTube and listening to this, and for the first time maybe getting a good idea of what your national staff does. We need a grammarian. We need someone who is well-versed with the English language, who talks good, who speaks good, and who writes good. And we need a person to do that, to review our documents. And if there's anyone who would like to volunteer to do that, or there's a retired English professor who would like to do that, I'm available in Aux Data. Just or in Aux Officer, shoot me an email and we'll talk. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Commodore King, for the opportunity of having served under you. It was a great pleasure and honor. Thank you, Commodore Maluski. I look forward to serving with you, and of course, with Commodore Formato as well. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commodore Cream. For those of you who are unaware, I participated in a number of those elections that Commodore Cream referred to with him. And many of you refer to him as Commodore, rightfully so, but I bestowed upon him superpowers. And we actually have to get him a cape now. So he's an amazing man, and he's done a great job of never seeing that I needed bail money. Thank you, sir, for that. And I would truly be lost without him. Thank you. With that, I move on to a brother in blue, NACO, Assistant National Commodore for Diversity Inclusion, David Porter. And those of you who know me well know that diversity inclusion is very dear to my heart. David?
Good afternoon, Chief Director and staff, Commodore Molesky, and Commodore, as much as it is formal, my brother Gus. Good afternoon, and to all of my fellow staff officers, a happy belated holidays and a happy and better new year. We had a very successful year in diversity. Comparatively speaking, just to give you some base numbers before I get into the bullet points of our strategic plan. Last year, we had 371 NACO 3-star applications. That represented a 14% increase over the year before, of which we had 237. So my congratulations to all of those flotilla and division units that had submitted and received that award. They're in the process of being distributed now, so you should have them within the coming weeks as we work hard to get them out. As to our strategic plan, our goal is to develop and implement clear diversity management policies and practices that are to be implemented and properly resourced with an emphasis on roles, responsibilities, authorities, and accountability. The plan has 4 general goals that link these directives and drive us to higher levels of a multicultural and integration and inclusivity of our members. One of our goals is to increase from 24% of units receiving the NACO 3-star award for excellence to 40% by 2023. At this point, we're well on our way to actually doing that, and we hope to actually hit that goal, if not surpass it. We wish to, we're looking to develop a baseline of members who have 1 mission-related qualification, or none for that matter, an increase to a minimum of 4 mission-related qualifications for an increase to 25% also by 2023. This is going, we hope to achieve this by integrating our jobs compendium that is currently posted on our website, where people can learn what it takes to get involved in the various programs that we have to offer, particularly if they are available within their district, because we know some districts don't have some of the programs available, or some divisions and flotillas don't have some of those programs that are mutually available to more robust and active divisions and districts. We also want to develop a baseline of filled diversity positions. We feel that we would be better able to augment and support not only our HR directorate, but the auxiliary and Coast Guard as a whole, if we have a stronger push to have each flotilla and division have a diversity officer. We hope that by 2023, that with our outreach to those units that are lacking a diversity officer, will increase to 80% of those positions being filled. And last but not least, we want to work hand in hand with all of our national partners that have anything to do with outreach and recruitment, whether it's public affairs, HR, or RBS, because those are the directorates that are routinely interacting with people as they go about their day-to-day business for the auxiliary, and see if we can't increase by 15% our underrepresented minority population by 2023. Last, in an effort to enter into professional development, not only for diversity officers, but for the auxiliary as a whole, we feel that potentially adding 4 particular FEMA courses to AUX to teach our membership the courses offered through FEMA in diversity awareness, civil rights, including people with disabilities, and religious and cultural literacy, will give us a broader idea as to the mindset of people that we're interacting with, and also make us culturally sensitive to those people who we're interacting with, in hopes to not only retain our members that fall into those various categories, but to do outreach for recruitment for people who fall within those categories. That being said, I look forward to having a successful year. I want to formally thank my deputy, Tracy Schultz, and all of my division officers in the Diversity and Inclusion Directorate for the outstanding work that they did last year. And we look forward to serving in all matters going forward this year. I thank you for the opportunity to present. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Commodore. Which brings us to the Assistant National Commodore, CF, Commodore Bob Bruce. As you all know, the auxiliary funds are closely monitored and shepherded, and that falls on the shoulders of Commodore Bruce. Commodore, if you would.
Thank you, Commodore. Good afternoon to all. Deputy Donna Miller from District 7. Focus is on financial matters. Our first major assignment is to head up a new division chartered to coordinate and oversee the procurement of auxiliary software and internet services. We found that a lot of several different units have purchased the same thing, and so we're trying to coordinate everything and hopefully reduce the overall cost to the auxiliary while still providing the services that conduct their job. We'll have more on this later. Donna and I also serve on a financial control working group co-chaired by Mr. Minutolo from BSX and me. The working group was organized to review and make recommendations concerning internal financial controls at all levels of the organization, flotillas all the way up. This committee has been delayed due to the COVID pandemic. Hopefully we'll get back to that sometime this spring. One of our primary duties is the development of an annual budget for the auxiliary. With input from ANACOs and directors, we've completed the 2021 budget and submitted it to the association for inclusion in an overall association budget. That budget is being finalized and will be submitted to the association board of directors soon. We're also working on several other initiatives to increase transparency and accountability over the stewardship of national funds. We will communicate any resulting changes in procedures as they are developed and implemented. Thank you, Commodore.
Thank you, sir. Before I introduce our next presenter, I would like to share with you that one of Commodore Malevsky NACO's initiatives this year was for us as an organization to develop a culture of safety. And to do that, he tapped Commodore Don Zinner to head up SMS, Safety Management Systems. And SMS, Commodore Zinner, directly report to me as VNACO. And I want to introduce Commodore Zinner to share with you all the things that have already occurred to help us develop a culture of safety and the things that are about to occur. Commodore Zinner?
Thank you, Commodore. My safety team, working with the Coast Guard Office of Safety Management, would like to share with you an overview presentation this afternoon. It will give you an understanding of our initial development of the safety management system. Play, please.
We're all connected to our families, our co-workers, the community, and our nation. By staying safe and caring for each other, we can have a better world in which we can live, play, and serve others. The Coast Guard Auxiliary is fundamentally a safety organization. Our principal missions are recreational boating safety and assisting the Coast Guard with their maritime safety missions. Accordingly, our goal must be that there is no harm, that everyone is safe, always. We exist for safety. Not safety first, not safety second, but safety always. Each of us must take safety personally. To reduce harm, to make us safer, and to improve readiness and availability, the Coast Guard Auxiliary is collectively embracing an enhanced safety culture. We begin now, all of us, from the top down, and go forward whatever we do, wherever we are. To create a safety culture, we must first build the pieces, including a just culture, an atmosphere of trust where people share safety-related information. A reporting culture, where people are comfortable reporting errors and near misses. An informed culture, where we share knowledge of human, technical, environmental, and organizational issues that affect us. A learning culture, where we can share lessons learned and implement reforms as needed. A flexible culture, where we can adapt as necessary to emerging hazards. To foster this, we will implement a national safety management system, a formal, top-down, business-like approach to developing safety policy, managing risks, and assuring and promoting safety. It recognizes every member's role in accident prevention. It has a structured means of risk management decision-making. It's a system to identify hazards and improve safety to prevent mishaps. It increases confidence in risk controls through a structured assurance process and through continuous quality improvement. It shares knowledge through training and reporting both to our leadership and to each member. It promotes a safety culture. It's safety always. Safety always is the foundation of our culture. It adds value to our lives and helps us live, work, and play in a better, safer world. With your help, we will be confident. We will have the right policies in place. We will be smart. We will learn from our mistakes and strive to improve. We will be careful. We will apply sound risk management principles. We will share a culture of safety. We will watch each other's backs. Safety, always.
Moving forward, we will be setting up an action groups to work with and their directors for the assistant developing the details. Additionally, we'll be working with the DCOs in upcoming area meetings, discuss champions in each district. We'll be speaking and working with you as we work together to build our national safety management system. Thank you, Commodore.
Well done, Commodore. Well done. Okay, that brings us to our question and answer session. Early on in the program, I asked each of you to hold your questions until the end, and there will be an allotted amount of time to address your questions. So if in an orderly manner you care to present your questions, I will either answer them or direct them to the ANACO or director best suited to answer them. It's time for shots on goal. Okay, I see a hand from Pat McMiniman. Pat, what can we answer for you?
Commodore, that's a great presentation by Don, and we've already started establishing a culture safety committee here in D7. So I'd like to know if he could share that PowerPoint with us, if that's somewhere that's available where we can share that with where I can share that with my committee.
It'll be my
Commodore,
honor.
Commodore Zinner, please do. Thank you.
We will be talking to a lot of the Commodores directly and seeing what they need and make suggestions for safety champions within your districts.
Thank you.
Next question.
Commodore Formato, there is a question on the chat line. With the AAMS system down, what happens to leads presently?
Okay, I think I'm going to send that over to our IT folks first and then over to H. Please weigh in.
Commodore Formato, I'm going to ask that the H Directorate answer that question as to how they're handling leads.
That's fine. I'm totally comfortable with that. I just didn't know if you wanted to weigh in first. That's awesome. Thank you.
Roger.
Director Lee Zimmerman, please address this.
So leads come in a variety of manner now. You're right, there is no AAMS system right now, but we get them through the help desk, the National Help Desk. We get emails, we get them from flotillas, divisions, and districts. And as soon as we get a request, as casual as that sounds, as soon as we get a request like that, it is passed along to the branch chief for that particular area, who makes contact, does the sales pitch, if you will, and then helps direct that prospective member to a flotilla. It's a very casual approach. We are looking at a workaround. We're probably in a race to see which happens first, the manual workaround versus the AAMS system being brought back online. But throughout this whole last, I don't know, 6 months or so, we've been able to manage the casual requests in less than 48 hours and 100% of them that we get. So I'm not sure if that answers the question completely, but like I said, we're in a race to see if AAMS comes back online quicker than we come up with a manual workaround.
Thank you, Lee. Next question.
Commodore, this is a question that came from one of the YouTube attendees. The question is, what is the possibility of doing a physical boating exam versus a virtual boating exam?
I'll field that one myself, and that is governed by local policy. And this is something your specific director of auxiliary will address. Each director has their own guidance as to how they would like that done and by which means they'd like that done. So it would be my recommendation that you contact either your FSOVE or your DSOVE and find out what your local guidance is. Do I see any more hands?
You have Captain Johnson's hand up.
Hi, Captain. I'm not seeing it on my screen. Yes, Captain.
So I for the good of the whole, I just want to add on to that and stress for everybody, because I think this isn't quite known, but the way the Gold Side is operating, especially with Commandant's direction in COVID, is he put the operational commanders, i.e. the district commanders, sector commanders, in charge of how their units operate when it comes to the auxiliary. So to come back to what Commodore Formato just said, you may see some places that it's allowed, and that might be based off of local conditions. But other places you may not see that vessel safety checks are allowed. Again, the basic premise here is operational commanders are making the decisions.
Thank you, Captain. The next question I have is from Chief of Staff Kurt Sarek. Kurt, you had a concern with regards to using Zoom versus Microsoft Teams or other platforms. Zoom has been determined to be secure for our purposes, and there's no issue with us using Zoom versus GoToMeeting or Microsoft Teams or some of the other platforms that are available. Are there any additional questions? I'm going back and forth between seeing hands up and chat.
I have one. What is the plan for real ID for U.S. Coast Guard base access for auxiliary members?
I'm going to punt that to Captain Johnson.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So real ID is more of a state issue than it is a federal auxiliary ID card issue. So honestly, right now we are not developing a real ID card. If that's the premise of the question, and there's no intent to do that. If we were to do that, it would make it a much more complex process and probably slow down the issuance of cards.
Thank you, Captain.
The next question I have is, when do you project OX 10 virtual classes to be out?
Okay, AUX 10, that is the IS class?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Randy, it's yours.
Okay. What we're hoping to accomplish is to have it available by NACON. Actually, we may have an actual AUX 10 at NACON, but we expect to have the virtual classes on or before NACON. And there's a lot of hard work going into it by the instructor team and by our IT fellow to get that ready to go.
Thank you, sir.
Certainly.
Joe Giantasio, Commodore D5 North, asked if Coast Guard computers are capable of using any other virtual software platform other than Microsoft Teams. I'm not capable of answering that question. I'm not sure Captain Johnson could even weigh in on that. Captain, can you? Or?
It's not possible. We just have the secure teams. It's a special teams developed for DoD. Other than that, our systems won't even allow us to install any other software on it or to utilize any other software in the browser. So that's the only capability we have.
Thank you, Captain. Amanda, I see your hands up.
Yes, Captain Johnson, I was just wondering if so your site is restricted to Microsoft Teams. If I were to schedule a Teams meeting, but in my own Teams organization, would you be able to join that? Would we be able to create a link there?
So what we typically do in BSX is we switch between our personal computers and our work computers. For instance, on this call right now, I'm on a personal computer that will allow me to do it. So in essence, yes, we're flexible. We could switch computers and come on to whatever link you provide us from a personal computer.
Okay. I was looking for, is there a value of doing things in Teams from our side, but I don't think we can cross that chasm between the firewalls to your secure Teams, whether we started something in Teams or not.
Yeah, and this is where I'm not really up to speed on this. I'd have to depend on my staff, but they're on YouTube right now. But I know there is capability to have, for us to set up Teams so that somebody from the outside of the Coast Guard network, we could have a meeting with them. I don't know what goes into that. It's probably a more substantial process to it than would be typical. But I know, I believe Commodore Formato utilized that to participate in the senior leadership conference for the Coast Guard, and I think it worked out fine for him. So that is a possibility. But I would recommend talking to Lieutenant Booth or Steve Minatolo, and they could probably link you up with the details on that.
Okay, yeah, I was just looking for opportunities there. I think I understand the technical challenges now, so thank you very much.
Captain, that is correct. I was able to participate easily, providing the link for my invitation. Okay, I'm going to scroll through chat now. I see I have one more here. The question regards the AUX ACN class with the second test, the practical section. And they want to know if this application is still under development. So I will refer that to Director T. Gerlinde, please.
You know, we do not control that course as to the testing. Greg might be able to give a better answer as he has a handle on a lot of the courses that we don't control outside of T. Greg, can you help me out there? Can't hear you.
Yeah, I don't hear him either.
Greg, you're muted.
We still can't hear you.
He must be muted on his
Okay,
own
there we
because
go.
he's unmuted here.
Yeah,
Okay.
there we go.
Okay.
The issue with the B, that was an DIROC's proctored course. They had the answer sheets. You had to have a proctor sit down once they sent the test to the proctor, and then the chart process was handled, and then it was packaged up and sent back to the local DIROCs for grading and final approval. You know, I don't know how many of the DIROC shops still have the Part B test, but we as directorate never had the Part B test because of the way it was originally established. So that's pretty much all I can say is check with your local DIROCs to see if they've got the test and how they want to have it proctored, but that's going to have a physical proctor. It can't be done virtually.
Okay, thank you. It may not be the answer that the member was looking for, but it's the best answer. Thank you. Okay, Tiny, you're indicating that you still have it in D13. Perhaps you can share with us how they're going about proctoring and grading that.
Yeah, so we just had a couple of people do it, and basically they sent to DIROCs the request for the exam and the paperwork. It went to the proctor, and then once it was completed, it was sent back to the DIROCs just as it was talked about. But I wasn't even sure if we still had the test and stuff there, but they do, and the same with the charts too.
The training chart, the TR 1210?
Yes.
Good to know. Thank you, sir. Okay, I seem to having something else popped up in chat here, and it indicates that D7's doing the same way as D13. Thank you, Commodore McMenamin. Okay, next question. I got eerily silent. I have nothing in chat. I don't see a hand raised. So I'll give it a moment. If nothing else pops up, I will move on to closing remarks.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
I have one question. Will the NACO 3-Star Award for Excellence in Diversity be modified in Section 4 to allow for limitations due to COVID?
Commodore Porter.
That is an excellent question, and the short answer is yes. We want to address this in either of two ways. Well, actually, technically, it would be three ways. If the submitting unit is able to fill out the application as normal, they're encouraged to do so. If because of COVID, their practices, their operations, their fellowship has been interrupted more than usual, more than some other units, then we're suggesting one of two things, and this is starting to be talked about at our town hall meetings that we hold at least once a month, if not twice a month. The first way is, of the 4 sections that have to be completed, there are perhaps 6 paradigms in each section, and we ask you to complete 4. We're only asking now to complete 3 from each section. The other thing that we're looking at is that if one of those paradigms is not available to that flotilla or division unit, then we're asking that you complete 4 of the several paradigms from 3 sections. So it's either 3 from 4, 4 from 3, or if you can, the application as normal. This way we'd be able to attract more units to submit in order to showcase what they've done, even under the most difficult of circumstances.
Well said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, scrolling through chat. I see nothing there. Terry, do you have anything?
The only thing I have is from Commodore Mo, and he says he can proctor on a 1-to-1 basis in D1, NR, and SR.
Correct, I responded. Yeah.
And one question, can you tell us more about the Auxiliary Association and how they can benefit flotillas?
Commodore Pika.
I'm going right up, Commodore. Oh, let me try it a little better.
I hear you.
All right, well, there we go. Okay.
I hear you.
Okay, well, there's a couple of ways, one of which is subtle, by the way, so let me do that one first. A couple of years ago, we changed all of our pricing from basically what the market would bear to cost plus, which lowered the cost of public education by about 60%. So if you're still able to get, pick a number, $50 a student, whatever, once you can resume the face-to-face, which obviously will happen this year, there's a lot more of that that's going to stick to you than ever stuck to you before. Because if you can still get, the market will still bear $50, and I'm just making that number up, and you're paying a lot less for the materials, you make more money. And that helps obviously build a stronger balance sheet for the flotilla to do the things training related, fellowship related, that otherwise you wouldn't be able to do if you weren't making as much money. Okay, so that's the subtle one. The easier one is there's lots of grant opportunity out there, and the former AUXA policy was you write the grant, we'll have somebody make sure you fill it out right. And that wasn't a very good model, frankly. So we have 3 grant writers now on staff. In fact, they're working very, very closely with Commodore Lauer's team in a terrific collaborative effort with BSX. You find the grant, and we'll write it with your help, of course, because there's lots of local knowledge that is necessary. But the meat and potatoes of the grant, we now have people to do that, and who just crave the opportunity to serve in that capacity. Those, I think, are the 2 easy, and that's true, by the way, of any unit, flotilla, division, or district, on the grant writing side. And of course, one more idea just occurred to me. I mentioned earlier at the start of this session, Stan Feldman is our Chief Materials Liaison Officer. What Stan does basically on a periodic basis is send relatively stale materials, merchandise rather, to the DSO MAs at our cost and say, look, if you want these shirts or you want these sweaters or whatever. So listening, having said that, we just want to make sure that the district commodores and the DSO MAs are getting that information down to the flotillas, who tend to be the buyers, not the district levels. So they're perfectly serviceable. They're good as ever. They just have kind of come out of fashion. But if you need a sweater and it's $20 instead of $40, why not?
Well said. Thank you, Commodore. Okay, that about runs us out of time for questions.
More, if you want.
We have one more. Okay, this will be the last one.
More. And the question is, can we reduce the number of people that are recruited from 7 to 5 for 2020 and 2021 for the Ox Recruiting Service Award?
That is something that would most likely be addressed through a national recommendation because it would require a change in the Ox, man. So, is it possible? Yeah, of course it's possible, but someone's going to have to make that recommendation. Okay, if there's no further, I would like to turn it back to NACO, Commodore Alex Malevsky, for closing remarks.
Good afternoon, I think for most people now, isn't it? Except D14. Good afternoon. Thank you everybody for attending. I hope everybody was as impressed as I was. Bravo Zulu to the team, especially to the IT team. You know, the Charles and Patrick, who made this work. I think the fact that we pulled this off is absolutely amazing. You know, as I mentioned earlier, there were comments over the course of the year that we were shut down. You saw the reports. Does it look like the auxiliary was closed? I don't think so. I think the work that you folks have done is just, it's more than impressive. It's inspiring. The future is very bright. As I said, the talents that we had developed, we're going to keep, we're going to improve, we're going to go forward, we're going to do a lot of great things. And how about Admiral Fagan? How lucky are we to have such a tremendous leader that is such a fan of the auxiliary? We're very fortunate. You know, she was excellent, and the fact that she's such a supporter of the auxiliary and truly appreciates the work that you do, that's great for the organization. You know, I don't want to keep you any longer. I appreciate everybody's patience. It's Saturday afternoon. Not that there was a whole lot of other things to do these days, but this was great to see everybody, albeit virtually. And as I said, looking forward to NACON. Bravo Zero to all. Thanks again. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Alex. I have a couple very brief comments and we'll close it out. First, I'd like to thank Patrick Brown, Terry Barth, and Chris Harshfield. Excellent, excellent job. I had no idea what to expect going in, but knowing the three of you, I knew it would be excellent, and you do not disappoint. That's for sure. Next, my next comment's for Captain Johnson. Captain, you are truly going to be missed. You made such an impact on our organization. Hearing you say things like door-to-door combat and knowing exactly what that meant and what you were willing to do for each one of us, it's just amazing. Sir, I thank you, and I will always hold you in the highest regard.
Thank you.
The next thing I'd like to address is the fact that we were able to open this up to so many more members via YouTube than we were able to bring people out to St. Louis. I think that that's a huge plus, and I hope they got as much from this as I did. But there is a downside. The downside is I truly miss the fellowship that we shared, but it's coming again. It's coming in August in Orlando, and I understand the weather in Orlando is a lot more desirable than the sub-zero temperatures in St. Louis. And just a couple of housekeeping items. For those directors that added something to their ups or downs, could you please forward them to Terry Barth so she may add them to the compilation? That would be greatly appreciated. And NACOs, if you would be so kind as to forward your remarks to Mrs. Barth for the same reason so that she may add them to the compilation and then disseminate to all of us, that would be so greatly appreciated. In closing, I want to thank every member that joined us today. It shows quite a bit of your commitment, your dedication, and your willingness to make this a much better auxiliary. Thank you.
Thank you, Commodores.
Thank you all for tuning in. This will conclude today's broadcast. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Hey.